All right, San Diego Sports 760. John Schaefer, Sammy Long hanging out with us here for the next hour. Appreciate you, Sammy. We have that giveaway that we've been qualifying our listeners for over the last day or so. That's SDFC on Saturday against Montreal. It is the MLS opener for SDFC in year 2. Not only are we going to qualify a listener every hour for 2 free tickets, that grand prize winner gets tickets and an SDFC jersey. So you'll hear a sounder every hour, 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. And each hour will qualify someone to win those 2 tickets in the jersey, right, Brett?
Yes, and there was a little confusion yesterday with the sounder. So don't call now because we're not doing it now. So don't call now, but I'm going to play the sounder. This is what you're going to want to listen for during the show today.
On the other side, Anders, 1v3. Anders on his left, Anders, goal! El Paletero! Golazo!
So when you hear that, that's when you're supposed to call.
Okay, what happened yesterday that was confusing?
Because it doesn't actually tell you to call in or be, to call and win anything.
That
so
is
some people
we had some confusion with those.
Yeah, some people thought we were just randomly playing Adrian clips during commercial breaks and stuff. So
Okay, you're going to hear that. Don't call now.
Yes.
When you hear it next, call 877-767-4760. We'll qualify someone. We'll announce the winner, though, of the tickets and the jersey. When is that? Thursday afternoon, Brent? Is it tomorrow afternoon?
we're announcing it Friday, I think.
We'll announce it on Friday. Okay. Listen, we have 4 hours, so we have plenty of time to discuss whatever we want. Kevin Acey's on the show at 2:30, by the way. So Kevin obviously was with Sammy and Ben yesterday. He'll be with us throughout the course of the season. He'll join us coming up at 2:30. Some of the storylines, 6-man rotation, Walker Buehler, we can get into. And Darnay Tripp, friend of the show, will join us at 3:30. I know you've touched on San Diego State today. I'll start there because it's the last thing that's been on my mind, because the last time I was on the air, I was at Viejas Arena. And yes, what everyone is saying to some extent in terms of the frustration is completely understandable. Of course you'd be frustrated. I don't know why Sammy's wearing purple today, by the way.
I just realized that right now.
As they lose to Grand Canyon.
I'm going to pull out my Aztec diploma so I can put it right there.
You got a San Diego State degree. That's a good point. But of course it's frustrating. Of course it's one of those games that's costly from an at-large perspective. But the counter argument I would make, and you'll say that I'm biased, some of you will, our listeners, is that, yeah, they lost a game as a favorite, but over the course of a season, that's typically going to happen. By and large, San Diego State is taking care of business. They've had a couple of slip-ups this year. Grand Canyon is a good team. So even if they won yesterday, they weren't guaranteed to make the NCAA tournament. Even though they lost yesterday, it doesn't mean they're not going to make the NCAA tournament. Expectations are good. The fact that people have high expectations of San Diego State is a positive. But every time they lose doesn't mean they've gone from a good team to a really bad team. And that's sometimes the initial reaction. I think when you take the 30,000 foot view, or you take the deeper breath, there are things to be learned. GCU is obviously not a good matchup. They go 0-2 against the Lopes this year. Let's see if they can bounce back. There's still a lot of basketball in front of this team. I wouldn't just say because they lost yesterday, the season is over. I don't think that's right. Just like if they won yesterday,
right,
I wouldn't have said their season is made.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. So yesterday, I think, was disappointing from the sense of you felt like it was, Coach Dutcher talked about it. It was a revenge game. You felt like they kind of got jibed in that game where they lost 70-69, the late call at the end. Now, I will say Grand Canyon, and to their credit, proved it again yesterday. They built big leads in both games. In the first game, they ended up holding it, but they gave the game up when the Aztecs went down 14, but came all the way back. To your point about the sky is falling and people kind of have that mindset, I think it's more about them struggling early, because overall in Mountain West play, they have 3 losses in Mountain West play so far. And overall, that's not bad. Like, they've had some pretty good wins. The problem is that Troy loss. I was watching, I was listening to you and had the game on TV, and they were showing the Troy loss. It was the worst net loss. I believe they're 132 right now. It's that Troy loss. No one's going to fault you for losing to Michigan, Arizona, and Baylor, but they didn't look very good in those games. They weren't close losses. Arizona they hung with for a half. So I agree with you. I think people have a little bit of doom and gloom today. The season is not done. This team has a lot of talent and is certainly capable of winning the Mountain West Conference tournament. And who knows? Maybe they win the next 5 games and they're still on the fringe line, on the cut line, and able to make it as an at-large team. I think just last night was a little shocking. I was surprised how much of an effect DeMiro, whatever, for Grand Canyon had on the game.
Man, yeah.
14 points, 11 boards. I thought, considering they really only play one big for Grand Canyon, that the Aztecs were going to be able to dominate in that regard with Magoon Guath back and Heidi and Odin and everyone. That wasn't necessarily the case. But again, I think it was more of an off night, but because of the kind of hole they put themselves in early, it's a much bigger deal than had it been if they weren't in that hole and I just lost to GCU again.
Yeah, like I went on this like random rant on the wrap-up show where I was like, so they lost to Grand Canyon, and then that makes so because they lost to Grand Canyon, are we saying that Grand Canyon's a bad team or San Diego State is a bad team? It's like, so basically you're afforded no margin. It's like if you're going to play in a league outside the Power Four, is the expectation they beat everyone other than Utah State?
Right.
Because Grand Canyon is a good team. Now, have they been perfect? No, but nor has San Diego State. It's like these teams outside the Power Five, they're asked to do so much. It's like San Diego State's basically asked to go, like 22-6 and go 17-3 in the Mountain West and play 6 games at elevation. And like, it's hard. I knew that going into the year or into the conference schedule. I'm like, if their only way to get to the NCAA tournament is going 17-3, then there's going to be a lot of disappointed people because it's hard to go 17-3 in a good league. It's not, I'm not saying it's the Big Ten or the SEC, but when you're playing teams that are consistently like hanging in the top 75, everyone's like, oh my gosh, there's some massive upset. It is true. San Diego State was an 8-point favorite. That's a decent number. As I said last night, it's not Chaminade, Virginia. It's not U.S. Russia 1980 Lake Placid stuff. It was they're an 8-point favorite, but it's like Grand Canyon is like 20 spots behind San Diego State in the metrics. So it's like you have to win against teams that you're supposed to beat, but it's hard to do that every single time you take the floor.
And to that end, when we talk about in the NFL, what is a gambler's betting dream? Home divisional dogs that are on a primetime slate. You always what's the rule? You always take the points with the home divisional team. Why?
Because know each other. They play up.
So to your point about the Mountain West Conference, if you play in the Big 12 and you get Kansas and Iowa State and Arizona and Houston, right, a couple losses, you're like, that's fine. We'll go beat Arizona next week and we'll make the whole thing back. Same with the SEC. The unfortunate part about the Mountain West is that, right, you don't have, outside of Utah State, in San Diego State, frankly, being one of those teams, one of the top teams in the conference that people kind of make their hay on trying to beat, in them being the signature win. The same applies. The Mountain West has all the rivals. These teams see each other every year. They know each other really well. So yes, on paper, they're an 8.5-point favorite at home, but it's not some crazy shock that Grand Canyon came in and got the win. And it's just a shame in the conference that in the Big 12, you're allowed a lot of losses because you can just get it back by beating really excellent teams. Unfortunately, the Aztecs just don't have as many opportunities because of the Mountain West.
Did you play this or hear Tay Simmons last night by chance?
Saying we're the best team in the conference.
Did you guys play that?
We didn't play it, but okay. I saw it.
I have Brent has the audio. We're gonna play it. I liked what he said. I like the confidence. We're gonna hear it. We can react. This was him following up what Miles Bird had to say about his reaction to, they were picked to finish first in the Mountain West, but now they're in second place in the Mountain West.
I want to add to that. Like, we don't care what other people have to say about us. Like, I think that's a really important fact that, like, who cares if they had us, winning before this even started? Like, that's before the season. Like, we don't care. It's between us 15 guys, and that's what's going to get us the win, not whatever these other people think about us. So I think that's kind of what we do good as a team, is we realize that people are going to love us when we're winning and beating people by 20, and they're going to hate us when we lose. Like, oh my gosh, they're not going to win. But like, that doesn't matter because they don't know basketball. So at a certain point in time, it's just us in the locker room. That's all that matters.
I kind of like it. Now, it's got an interesting reaction because there were some people that posted on social media, and then of course all these other Mountain West fan bases are like chiming in, and that's fine. I mean, that's all good banter, whatever. And like he said, he doesn't care. I mean, the best thing you can do after a game like that, not necessarily me or you or fans, but if you play, is to stay away from all the outside noise. Just like the best thing to do when you're in the midst of a 10-game winning streak is to stay away from social media and all the outside noise too. That was the point I thought he was making, which is when you win, everyone loves you. And when you don't, they turn their back on you. But we're not afforded that same thing. We have to be like a steady ship. The strength of Brian Dutcher teams are oftentimes they stay like level, right? They're calibrated. They don't take on water.
They still got to play on Saturday.
They still got to play on Saturday. It's like whatever happened, they could have won yesterday. Would that have afforded them a loss at Colorado State? No, not really. So they have to bounce back. I don't think it's going to be easy. The schedule coming up is not easy. I'm curious to see how they respond. Hopefully they'll get an LZ Harrington back. They've got Magoon Guath. I think that's beneficial for their long-term ceiling over the next few weeks. And now the question is, how do you respond?
Well, and I get that, those comments from Tay Simmons. I mean, you're sitting there going, I'm sure the Aztecs, and we'll see what Vegas thinks in the Mountain West Conference tournament. I don't think that they're necessarily out of an at-large bid, but let's just say they are for sakes. If they go in the Mountain West Conference tournament, they're going to be one of the favorites of Utah State to win that tournament. So yeah, if you're Tay Simmons, you're sitting there going, I believe in these guys. I believe in the collection of talent we have. And kind of going back to overall, they've been good against Mountain West Conference foes. It's really the damage that was done early that feels like a lifetime ago. I mean, that was, November and early December. They had that Troy loss and some of those rough outings in the Players Era tournament. I like the confidence from Tay Simmons. I think this team plays with a lot of swagger, and one home loss to Grand Canyon, albeit disappointing. I'm not going to hide the fact that it was disappointing and you felt like they wanted to get some get back and they weren't able to do it. You still think that you feel very confident about them down the stretch here, still being able to make a case for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I forget if it was maybe you and I discussed this or me and Fletch or somewhere along the way. I had a recent conversation where it's like, and in fact, Bryce Drew even said this post game is like, we made some tough shots. They didn't, like their shots, their tough shots weren't falling. We made some tough shots. Like Jaden Henley, the really talented guard who was at UNLV, who's now 4-0 against the Aztecs the last 2 years, which is incredible. He banks in a 3 in the first half. He has one go off the rim, off the backboard, and in the second half. And that's fine. San Diego State's going to have that happen over the course of a year as well. And it's more than just, hey, sometimes your shot goes in and sometimes it doesn't. But there's an element of that. They shot 35%. San Diego State's been a good offensive team. They've been scoring 80 points per game. Now, credit Grand Canyon. I thought their defense last night was excellent. I think it very much frustrated San Diego State. But beyond that, the Aztecs shot 35%. And they can perform better than that. My last point on it, Sammy, is that, yes, they were swept in the regular season by Grand Canyon. And I don't know if they meet again if Grand Canyon wins or if San Diego State can get some revenge. But just because they lost the 2 games to Grand Canyon doesn't mean they're incapable of beating Grand Canyon. If they
100%.
Right?
I mean,
sports.
The first matchup, it came down to 1 point last night. I mean, I think if they met again, Grand Canyon certainly believes in themselves or confident in themselves. You got to look at, to your point about the tough shots not falling in. They didn't fall. They had, in the first game, Grand Canyon hit 10 threes. Aztecs hit 3. A little bit of a 3-point disparity last night, and they beat them in transition again, which was kind of surprising. They really were able to run and get some easy buckets. But right, yes, did it hurt their at-large bid? 100%. And is it okay as an Aztecs fan to be disappointed today? 100%. But coming in a month in Vegas, I give the Aztecs as good a shot as any to win that tournament and get in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, let's see if they can get healthy and let's see how they play down the stretch. All right, Kevin AC at 2:30. Darnay Tripp from NBC7 will join us at 3:30. We'll turn our attention to Padres spring training on the other side and the chances Walker Buehler can actually make this team out of camp. We're here until 6 p.m. Be listening for that sounder to qualify to win SDFC tickets and an SDFC jersey right here on San Diego Sports 760. All right, San Diego Sports 760. I'll be honest, it is odd seeing Walker Buehler in Padres brown and gold. After obviously his career, by and large, has been spent in LA with the Dodgers, but now he's going to try to make this team. What do you got, bro?
Did the Padres have to custom order his skinny jeans?
They probably will if he makes the team. I don't know if they'll do that if he's in AAA, but I think that I spent 2 hours on this basically with Annie Halbern, who was in yesterday, and the crux of it is the work that the Padres have done here recently. I mean, AJ Preller has been like pounding coffee. Apparently, I mean, they're just making move after move over like this 72-hour stretch, whether it was Walker Buehler, German Marquez, Ty France, it goes on and on and on.
Do the Padres know that you can make transactions in the offseason, not just when spring training starts?
But the question for me is all this add up to anything of substance? Like Walker Buehler, amazing career prior to this injury. And now you're banking on, well, he had a nice 7-start stretch or whatever to end the season. German Marquez, success before TJ. Ty France has had good years, not last year. Nick Castellanos has had a good career, not last year or the year before. It's like, are you adding quantity or are you adding quality? And that is going to be still determined, right?
Well, I was listening to you and Andy. You guys sounded great. And I was like, you guys made the point that not all these guys can make the team.
So look at me, 26 guys,
So if the budget clearly wasn't much, then I love what they've done. Because I think throwing, a bunch of darts at the dartboard. Let's take Walker Buehler. Walker Buehler had a great postseason run with the Dodgers World Series against the Yankees. The only bad outing actually was here in San Diego. And you honestly don't even blame him for that one. Rojas, a couple guys made errors, which led to the Tatis grand slam. Last year was not very good with the Dodgers. Ate up a lot of innings, though, to be fair to him, because of the Snell, Glasnow, all the injuries that were had. Then the Dodgers basically were like, listen, you're going to move to the bullpen because of how talented our starting rotation is. He told them absolutely not. So they traded him. So at least with Buehler, you have a guy who has pitched in massive big games. He's never going to be the guy he once was, throwing high 90s velocity, coming off the 2 Tommy John surgeries, but he's a guy who's been there before. Marquez feels like a total shot in the dark, and he wasn't very good in Colorado. That is obviously a tough ballpark for pitchers, but still, that's a total upside move. I'm actually gotta say, I think the guy that I'm most excited about is Griffin Canning.
I thought you were gonna say Castellanos.
Well, just because Canning, I think people forget this guy was like supposed to be one of the top Angels prospects to go alongside Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. He was like supposed to be the guy. Right. And has he been great? No, he had a 5 ERA a couple of years ago, 4 last year, but was decent in some starts. So all that being said, I think I'll give AJ Preller the benefit of the doubt, because whatever it's been, Nick Pivetta was not the Nick Pivetta that we know now when the Padres signed him. Gavin Sheets was kind of a cast off from the White Sox. They signed him. He ends up working out. So all these moves, because they didn't assign a lot of money to them, I think there's only the shot at upside. But I do get the concern you bring up of there's a reason why all these guys were free agents and available for the money they were available.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not willing to say, like with baseball, you can't say anything definitive in February. So I'm not going to say this was some dire mistake or that this can't work, and I'm also not going to say the opposite, which is like, oh my gosh, all these signings are so brilliant. Watch this team win 100 games. What I am asking is, would it have just been better to go out and sign Lucas Giolito? Would it have just been better to go out and sign Chris Bassett? I think the answer definitively is yes, but they didn't have the money. So I understand that. And I was kind of holding out hope. Well, the Darvish money, that'll save them. And I don't think it will. I mean, maybe there's still, like a rabbit in a hat somewhere, trade deadline, trade in spring training. Who knows what can still transpire. But listen, they've been criticized for not having depth. They've added a level of depth. The question is, what is the quality of the depth that they've added? That's the question for me.
I think the game plan, obviously, for the Padres, to your point, I think it's a little bit disappointing in that you thought with the Darvish money potentially coming back, they were going to go star hunting. They were going to go big name hunting, even if it was a Bassett, not the elite Framber Valdez who was available, but a guy you'd be like, okay, Chris Bassett, fantastic. He's going to pencil in every 5 days. This is that AJ Preller special of we're throwing all these guys out there, including Matt Waldron, including JP Sears, Randy Vasquez, and we're going to hope one of these guys pop. to the Padres' credit, they have had success doing this in the past with these type of players. But it is, I mean, it's like you could have avoided all these problems by just going out with a little money in signing a Zach Gallen, in signing one of these guys who you just pencil in is going to be a big time starter for you versus really just kind of relying on hope for a large part of the season.
Yeah. And maybe they already maybe we're spending too much time on, the fifth spot in the rotation and, the third spot off the bench with the position player. Like, what's the overall value of those spots? Like, if you put together a good roster, otherwise, you can afford an average fifth starter. You can afford maybe an average bench, but that's contingent on the top four in your rotation being good or your lineup bouncing back from last year. So, I mean, I think the one that's most intriguing, the more you think about it, is just everything around Nick Castellanos in general. Right. Like, can he return to form? What does that even look like? What's his role going to be? So that to me is quasi savvy because you're not paying him any money. And we touched on, we said, if you're not paying him any money, why wouldn't you do it? So I credit them for doing it. Now we'll see if it hits or not.
Right. I mean, if he is anything, you made the point. He hit one fewer home run last year than Gavin Sheets, and it was Sheets at 252, he at 250. We universally praise Gavin Sheets.
Right.
So if he does exactly what he did last year, which was a massive disappointment year for Nick Castellanos, he's going to be a solid bat for this lineup.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. All right, Kevin AC on the other side with more on Walker Buehler, his chances of making the big league team out of spring training, and are the Padres going to go with a 5-man rotation or potentially a 6-man rotation to start the season? Plus thoughts on AJ Preller's extension and more with Kevin AC, our Padres Insider, next on San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by RCP Block and Brick. In NFL news, the Chiefs restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract, creating much needed salary cap space ahead of the 2026 season. The new deal converts a little over $54 million of Mahomes' 2026 salary into a signing bonus. And under the new deal, that will now count for an additional $11 million towards KC's cap in each of the next 4 seasons. Last night, the Aztecs fell to Grand Canyon. Their next game is on Saturday afternoon when they go on the road to play Colorado State. Our pregame coverage with Fletch will begin at 2:00, and John will have the tip after 3. Building a retaining wall, RCP Block and Brick has the largest selection like the classic Keystone Legacy block. Easy to install, available in 5 colors, and perfect for walls up to 36 inches. See all available styles at rcpblock.com, your number one source for retaining wall blocks.
All right, John Schaefer and Sammy Long's hanging out until 3 p.m. And it's always our pleasure to welcome back Kevin Acee, our Padres Insider from the Union Tribune, back with us on San Diego Sports 760. And in reading some of what is being written in Peoria by Kevin, let's talk about this rotation, Kevin. Obviously, spring training games haven't even started. You wrote about this, but for our listeners that didn't read it, what are some of the pros and cons of what they might be considering, whether it is a 5-man or a 6-man rotation out of spring training into the start of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it mainly has to do with Michael King and Joe Musgrove. Joe obviously didn't pitch last year with the Tommy John. Michael King made 15 starts. 72 innings? And they've always said they were going to be careful with these guys at the beginning. And I say credit to Fletch and Sammy yesterday for asking me and kind of jarring me loose from just my, I guess I was just, taking it for granted. And I still think that they're not going to have a 6-man rotation to start the season. They are off after 3 games. They play 3 more. They are off. So that's 2 off days in the first, 8 days. I think Nick Pivetta likes to go quick. So I think they're not going to start with a 6-man. What I think is after that, they play 10 in a row and that they'll call up somebody to make at least one start in that time. But they've said all along that while these guys, King and Joe, and King and Musgrove are healthy, they're going to be careful with them.
Kevin, what's up, man? When you look at the WBC, you got Bogarts, Tatis and Machado, all these guys heading out for that. How are they going to kind of do rosters during that time during spring training? Are certain guys going to get call-ups for chances?
Well, yeah, sure, absolutely. But also, they have a lot of competition in camp. I mean, I actually don't think so. I think I can pretty much tell you the 13 position players are going to be on there. But nonetheless, they've got guys playing new positions. They've got some competition. So guys are going to get more playing time. I remember last time it was like they had a bunch of minor leaguers. They had a pretty set roster. It was kind of part of the problem, right? They had this set roster and a bunch of guys were at the WBC. And so Cronenworth was playing every day. And it was crazy. This time, Ty France gets a shot. Bryce Johnson, who's probably going to be the backup center fielder, he gets to play some. Nick Castellanos gets to play a few different positions. Miguel Andujar gets to play a few different positions. Gavin Sheets gets a lot of work at first base. So, you got Sun Moon Song, who will play a lot of positions and is, playing his first year in the major leagues. So there's really a benefit to it. I'm not trying to sell this as, hey, it's great that, key players are going to be gone, but hey, maybe it is, if those guys that are gone handle it better than they have in the past in terms of not getting so up for these games and then coming back and having that week or so, depending on when they get eliminated, or they win the whole thing. And then it's just hard to just sort of keep it going into the season. Maybe they can handle it better. And then the guys who got to play back in the Cactus League and be a part of camp and step up and kind of create their own identity in the clubhouse and all that, maybe it will be a good thing.
Kevin Acee is our Padres Insider. He's with us right now on San Diego Sports 760. You also wrote about this idea that because of the WBC, yes, there'll be opportunities when the players are out, but before the WBC, players like Machado, Tatis, and Bogarts are going to get way more opportunities than they typically would, right? You're normally easing everyday players into spring training. That may not be the case this time around.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, that's definitely going to be the case. Now, what does that look like? Do they play 2 innings, get, hopefully, get 2 plate appearances, probably 1, and then do a few of them play the next day too? Or do they come back Sunday and now they're up 3 innings, 2 plate appearances? By the time they leave, are they up to like 4, 5 innings, 3 plate appearances? Because, they leave on the 1st, by the 6th, I think is when games start, and they're going to be playing 8, 9 innings. And so the Padres want them to be ready. Look, everybody was in camp early. Guys are getting prepared for this. They're obviously not going to rush anybody if someone hears this and goes, oh no, because yes, it would be different because like you said, like we just don't I barely count the Friday and Saturday Cactus League games because you just don't, not that they count, but I barely even I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I guess it really hasn't started because the regulars just don't play those first couple, but they will this time.
How many for the 3 new pitchers in Canning, Marquez, and Buehler? How many roster spots do you think is realistically available for those 3? How many will be kept?
Well, I mean, Canning's going to start the season. Wouldn't be surprised if it's on the 60-day IL if they determine that he's not going to be back till the end of May. But regardless, he's not going to be on the roster. And I think I think there's 1 spot for probably Buehler or Marquez, but hey, could be Sears, could be McKenzie, could be Waldron, but I think it's Marquez or Buehler. I think it's Buehler. We'll see what it looks like. I think there's some promising things that you saw last year and that people are saying about him. But now if they go with 6 starters at the start, then there's 2. Now, what you got to think about there is, so you're at the beginning of the season, guys aren't going very long, and now you're only going to have 7 relievers. Now, is one of those relievers, JP Sears, Kyle Hart, guys that can go 3 innings or whatever? They can figure this all out, but I really think that it's a 5-man rotation and that the 5 guys that are really battling, there's more, like Logan Gillespie's going to be stretched out, Kyle Hart's going to be stretched out, but really there's 5 guys, I think, going for 1 spot.
Kevin Acey is with us right now on San Diego Sports 760. I haven't talked to you since the Preller extension news. I'd ask it like this. Why won't they disclose the length of the agreement?
Preller's choice. Preller was highly uncomfortable with this. And just being the focus of attention. And look, that's not false. He's never been the guy. He's not the guy who perpetuated the rock star thing. He was not comfortable with that. He wants the focus to be on the players. He always talks about our group, meaning his scouts, meaning Josh Stein. So he was uncomfortable. He doesn't want us to know the next time it comes up. When he's like, why don't we hear about this from other GMs? I'm like, because other GMs aren't in their 12th year, man. Most guys are fired before their extension. So that's why it was a big deal to you. Plus, you've created, not him
right.
has created purposefully, but he has created this image, or there has been created around him this image and this interest in him. And he just doesn't want it.
I guess my follow-up would be, couldn't he have, and again, we can't speak for him, but he could have avoided it. The fact that this did get all the way into camp, and your reporting was spot on where you were saying last week, hey, this is likely to get done at full squad workouts, maybe by Monday, and it did. But this was all avoidable. If he didn't want to be the center of attention, he could have signed this thing 9 days ago, right? And there would have been so much less.
John Seidler could have gotten together with him and gotten it done. I mean, Preller had, there's financial. I'm not saying that, I don't think that was hugely important. I don't know that Preller he certainly has a buttony thing besides sweatpants. So he doesn't spend a lot of money, right? Doesn't have kids to drain him like you and I. I don't think that was a huge deal, but he wanted some of his guys taken care of. He wanted some assurances about some things. And so those things, yes, John, you are correct. He could have, but that's pretty easy. I could say you could have agreed to your 8-year extension with iHeart, sooner than you did. But I don't know all the details of that. And so I don't know. While AJ did take it on himself to say, hey, look, I did, and I think he meant it. I know he meant it. That, look, I don't focus on multiple things during the offseason there. I'm focused on trying to get the Padres better. John Seidler also said he likes to do these things in person, and John Seidler's been a little sidetracked with something pretty big.
He has, no doubt. And I was going to ask you about that. Just John Seidler, correct me if I'm wrong, basically his first time, if not his actual first time in a scrum situation. I know Eric Rupner was with him. I guess twofold, were you surprised he was willing to do that? And secondly, was there anything notable that he said as a takeaway from that media scrum?
I know that the idea that he said they're not moving, that people took that as notable, and I understand why, but it was ludicrous to think that the new owner would move the Padres. So that really, but it was news because he said it and all that, and it has been thrown out there. So I guess that was the biggest thing. I was surprised he did it because this is a man who's doing this job out of duty. Not that he doesn't love the Padres, but not everybody wants to be the boss. And he's doing this out of duty to his family and his late brother. He doesn't like these. You can tell he's uncomfortable when he does them. He generally declines to talk. And so in that sense, I was surprised, but I wasn't, because he knew that that's what he needed to do. And it would have been worse if he had not talked.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Kevin, we appreciate you taking time for us. Games on Friday, hard to believe, but spring training is here. I don't know if it's a must win or not, but it's a critical weekend, obviously, in Peoria. Appreciate you doing it, and we'll connect again coming up in a handful of days, all right?
Right on. Take care.
All right, great stuff from our Padres insider, Kevin Acee. We're going to react to that on the other side. Darnay Tripp is joining us at 3:30 from NBC 7. We're here until 6. Be listening for that sounder for your chance to qualify to win SDFC tickets and a jersey right here on San Diego Sports 760. Well, I feel like I buried the lead and I should have seen this, but we have 2 great giveaways today. So we're qualifying listeners all day. We'll announce the winner on Friday for SDFC Montreal Saturday at Snapdragon Stadium, the MLS opener for SDFC. You're also getting an SDFC jersey if you win that grand prize, which is incredible. Now that's something we're going to qualify someone for every hour. When you hear that sounder, we just had one and we just qualified a listener. But also today, we are giving away tickets for San Diego State's next home game. Now, I know they lost to Grand Canyon last night, but their next home game is still a massive game and big opportunity. Utah State next week at Viejas Arena. And that is, hold on real quick. That is going to be February 25th. So what day of the week is that? Is that a week from today?
That is, yes, it's a week from today.
A week from today. So next Wednesday night, San Diego State, Utah State. Now, we'll let you know when to call for that. That's about as good of a giveaway for an Aztec game as you're going to get. Utah State is ticketed to probably get to the NCAA tournament. They're right now 1 loss ahead of San Diego State for first place in the Mountain West. And Utah State has had San Diego State's number the last couple of years. So I know Saturday's big, Sammy, when they go to CSU because they're all big, but the next home game, that one's going to be big too against Utah State.
Well, even if the at-large bid, I don't think it's done, but let's just say it is. Grand Canyon beat you twice. I firmly believe that they can beat Grand Canyon, but obviously Grand Canyon, credit to them, beat them twice. Utah State, you also, if you're going to this tournament, you got to believe a little bit. I like what I'm hearing from Tay Simmons about how we still believe we're the best team, but there also is a little bit of a psychological thing that when you can't beat a team, the next time you play them, you're like, it builds every time. Every time it's Henley, like you said, 4-0.
4-0 against
from UNLV. So not that the Aztecs don't think that they can beat Grand Canyon, but certainly because Utah State and Grand Canyon have kind of been the thorns in their side this season. And as of right now, the reason they're not in Lunardi's bracket to be in March Madness. So a big matchup against Utah State, that's a big confidence booster, whether you're making your at-large big case or it's simply just a big game on the Mesa to prove to yourself that you can win that one.
Completely agree. Did you find it interesting that Kevin said, and I completely buy that AJ Preller is uncomfortable with the contract conversation, but and it's true, it takes 2 to tango. He can't sign his own contract. It's like, I can't here just name, Ryan Seacrest to be my co-host. I could try, but I don't have the authority to do that. So
did you call him?
I haven't called Ryan Seacrest.
Seacrest and Schaefer, I like that.
Down the line, I think it would be Schaefer and Seacrest, but I like the idea.
Schaefer out.
yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. But
you got Sperry too. You got 3 S's.
Yeah, there we go. But so I understand it takes the organization to get it done. And maybe it's more in the organization. Maybe it's more in AJ. But if you didn't want it to be uncomfortable, why did you let it play out this long?
Well, I also think, it's kind of funny that, like, I like AJ Preller a lot, but it's kind of funny that's going into it. If I was a GM, I'd be announcing that thing everywhere. I'd be calling the presses, the news to be getting full coverage of this thing. I don't understand why that's kind of a thing that he didn't want the attention on him. And to your point, the only reason that it became a big storyline was because all off season, it's like, when is it coming?
Mm-hmm.
When's it happening? And then AJ Preller kind of drew attention on himself when he said, what he say? He's like, oh, we just haven't had time to sign it yet, but it's going to get done. AJ, love you, man. But come on. That's
not possible.
That's a terrible excuse. I don't know if the PR team gave you that, but we haven't had time to sign. That's one of the things that you do. It's not like you've had some crazy busy offseason until last weekend. So I'm with you. That was kind of odd that's the holdup.
And John Seidler said in that scrum that they've only met 4 times this offseason. Really? You could have found a 5th or a 6th or a 7th. He's like, he went to Asia once. Okay. He went to the Northeast once. Figure it out. If AJ Preller's going to the Northeast, you can hop on a plane too. If there's time to get together with AJ Preller in New York City, you could do it. Yes, you can do it in San Diego as well. But the fact that they've only been in person together 4 times since October 2nd is slightly
Sean
bizarre.
McVay made the trade for Matthew Stafford in Cabo. They were vacationing together.
Right.
This is not something that was a big barrier. Contracts can get signed per PDF over a computer.
E-doc or whatever.
I did think it was funny in kind of an ironic way that, AJ Preller's whole job is, contracts and extensions and everything, but he's super embarrassed about his own.
And
I just thought that was kind
a
of
bigger
ironic
story, guys, because he won't. Now it has additional legs from me, certainly. And others on social media, it's like, you signed a multi-year deal. What are the terms of the deal? Oh, we're not at liberty to disclose that. Give me a
The
break.
players and to we asked Kevin AC this yesterday on our show, and I asked him, I was like, did Manny Machado's comments have something to do with it? When Manny Machado came out, he said no. So, all right, I'm going to trust Kevin AC, but then you're to adding more drama. It optically, it makes it look like Manny Machado had to call ownership and be like, you need to get this thing done. I'm not saying that happened,
but you're right.
But optically, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And like, okay, is it because I saw some of this speculation? Last point on this. Is it because AJ's deal is like the deals he signs with players where he basically signed a creative deal that gives him opt-outs? So is the fact that it's a multi-year deal only because he signed through 2027?
That's it. I mean, it's a good point.
Now, I think the deal might go beyond 2027 if he wants to go into 2028 and beyond.
That's a good point, because that's the only thing that I can think of as to why. Because I mean, we'd come on here and be like, oh, so they're not committing to AJ probably long term. They gave him a contract, but they're basically saying, yeah, you can opt out anytime you want, or he can opt out anytime he wants. That's interesting. I didn't even think about that, because I mean, the first glance is you don't want the terms out there. I mean, every player you sign, the first thing reported is the years and terms. That just seems odd for the business that you're in to be worried about not wanting your terms out there.
I mean, when you speak with the media, when you're in charge of a Major League Baseball team, it's like, it's a part of the gig. I mean, you're paid handsomely. Well, some random accountant that's listening to us, the terms of his agreement aren't out. Yeah, because that's kind of he doesn't have a public facing job,
right?
And he's also probably not compensated the way you are, AJ. I mean, you know what you're signing up for. You want to be an athlete. There's good and bad that comes with it. You want to be an executive. You're going to be under microscopes. That's what these positions entail.
I think it's fun. I don't know if you saw the Kevin Durant story where he was the burner accounts and he was asked about it. How he's had a burner account for all these years, talking about his teammates, and he didn't shut it down, but he kind of wanted to move on from it. It's funny that it makes me think of that, when it's like, if you want a public facing forward job where people are obviously care about the Padres in this city and they're talking about them every day. When you're this star basketball player and Kevin Durant, obviously Kevin Durant has a higher profile than AJ Preller, but it is like, there's things that come with that. People are in your business, people know what you make, but it is kind of funny. You feel like a lot of athletes and people in positions struggle with that, in terms of, you kind of want the best of both worlds. You want the kind of fame, the celebrity of it all, but then you kind of don't. And I think that's why you see athletes have problems with people.
Yeah, and I just, to put the bow on the Padre conversation, they're unique in the way that they go about their business, and it's not to be critical, because they've marketed the club incredibly well, and they've been received incredibly well, and they'll once again draw 3 million plus fans this year. But like, even John Seither, the way he answered a little bit about the potential sale, or it's just always very like, they're very measured and guarded. I get it with the sale. Like, you would never want to say something incorrect to push away a prospective buyer.
So you want to drive up a bidding war. So
and you want to be respectful probably of the process. So I do understand that.
But a GM contract is something you're like, that's, I mean, this is something that gets buried on the ESPN headlines way at the bottom for 20 minutes. It's
it just says, like, let's say Padres general manager AJ Preller signs extension through 2028.
Great. We're done with that conversation, but they make it a problem.
I know, it just never ends. All right, we do have Aztec tickets for next week against Utah State that we're going to give away. Darnay trip at 3:30. More on Walker Buehler's bid for a spot in the Padres rotation on the other side. Sammy, appreciate you hanging out, man.
Later, boys. Love being on.
Sammy's going to be back tomorrow. We're here until 6 p.m. The San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. In NFL news, the Chiefs restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract today, creating salary cap space ahead of the 2026 season. The new deal will convert a little over $54 million of Mahomes' 2026 salary into a signing bonus. And under the new terms of the restructured deal, Mahomes will now count for an additional $11 million against KC's salary cap for each of the next 4 seasons. In NBA news, the Kings' 2 highest players, Domantas Sabonis and Zach LaVine, both conveniently underwent season-ending surgeries today. According to ESPN's Shams, Sabonis had surgery to repair a torn meniscus in his left knee that he suffered in mid-November. But he was trying to rehab it and it didn't work. Last night, the Aztecs fell to Grand Canyon. Their next game is Saturday afternoon when they go on the road to take on Colorado State. Our pregame coverage will begin at 2:00 and John will have the tip at 3. Staples has hot deals and super low prices on everything for your business. And right now, brand your business at Staples with up to 30% off custom labels. Exclusions apply. Shop Staples in store, online, or in the app. Ends April 18th. Visit staples.com/print for details.
All right, San Diego Sports 760. We have Aztec tickets for their next home game against Utah State, which will be next Wednesday night, a week from tonight. A big game, regardless of last night. And we have tickets for that San Diego State, Utah State game, a pair of tickets for next Wednesday night. We'll announce how to win those tickets coming up. We'll do that between now. Trying to think when we want to give those away. We'll do it either in the 3 or 4 o'clock hour. So be with us. We'll give those away at some point over the next hour or two right here on San Diego Sports 760. Now, Darnay Tripp is going to join us. He launched a new show, believe it or not, on NBC7, Sports Night. And we can give him that plug when he joins us. And we'll talk to him about spring training, about the Aztecs, and more. So Darnay Tripp will join us coming up at 3:30. So we haven't really fully delved into what Walker Buehler could mean, because it's hard to truly know. What is the prognosis for Walker Buehler moving forward? Like, he's in a position where he's had multiple Tommy Johns. So you're just trying to make a roster at this point. And I think once you do that, it'll be interesting to see, like, is there a second act to the career of Walker Buehler? This was a guy that, was as good of a pitcher as there was in baseball at one point with the Dodgers. Is that fair to say? He was right there. You look at whether it's his regular seasons or what he's made. How many appearances? He's made 19 appearances in the playoffs. He's got a 3.04 lifetime ERA. So, this guy's done it. Now, the thing with pitching, unlike hitting, is there's the before and after element when you have significant injury. So you can't just be like, well, trust me, he's going to be the same pitcher that he was. And the reason you can't do that is look no further than what happened last year. Specifically with Boston, like it was not good. It was frankly bad last year with Boston. Now, at the end of the year, in a very brief stint with Philadelphia, he was excellent. And if you combine his few innings with Philadelphia with his last few starts or appearances in Boston, he had a nice finish to his year. But I do believe you need to kind of take the deep breath and you need to be realistic when it comes to Walker Buehler. My guess is he will have the opportunity. He will, to some extent, make this team. I don't know if it's out of camp or my guess is he's going to have an opportunity to pitch for this team as their number 5 starter. I would also assume he has some type of opt-out. If he isn't on the team by a certain date, he could opt out of the deal and try to, latch on somewhere else. So my point is this. I think he appears for the Padres, but like with a lot of these players we've talked about, including Michael King and Joe Musgrove, I don't know what my expectations are because I think some people believe that the Padres are getting Walker Buehler, where I think the Padres are getting a guy that at one point was Walker Buehler. And I don't know if he's ever going to be Walker Buehler again. In fact, there's a lot of reasons to believe he won't.
I'm with you. I think that he will appear, but the question is, how often?
Right. Is he
is
up all year?
I kind of feel like, if I had to put an over under on like his starts, I probably would put it really low at like maybe 6.5, something like that. Cause it just feels like one of those things where they're going to take a flyer on the guy. They're going to give him the beginning of the year to see how he does. And if he's doing below average, because he's going to be the 5th starter. They're not expecting him to come out there and be Pedro Martinez or anything at the number 5 spot. So if he's less than, average and isn't, capable, then they'll probably cut him loose after like 6 starts.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he's some prospect that they're going to send back down to, AAA or something like that to get work done. He's old enough that, that ship's sailed a long time ago. So if after 6 or 7 starts, if they don't think he's got it, they're just going to cut him loose.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, sometimes in a sport like baseball, we get enamored with names. And oftentimes in baseball, teams pay for past performance. More so in other sports. I mean, there's so many examples of this.
Xander Bogaerts.
I mean, right, Xander would be fair. I mean, obviously Albert Pujols, is probably the most prime example, but there's countless examples of guys that got these huge deals, in the second half of their career and their, performance is nothing like the first half of their. But this is Walker Buehler. That isn't my point. This is because of health. It's not Walker Buehler would be Walker Buehler if not for injury, right? Would be my guess because this guy's had a brilliant career. So listen, if I'm the Padres organization, of course it's worth the flyer. If he's able to recapture any of what the Padres saw firsthand, then that has great, great value. And if he doesn't, to Brent's point, you can cast him aside and you can move on to your next best option. Is there a scenario where he can return to that level of form? I don't know. My speculation would be no. But John, he had 3 good starts with the Phillies. But John, his last few outings with Boston were good. Okay. But you're not, I mean, I don't think the Padres are, looking for someone to make 4 good starts for them. I think they're looking for someone to make 30 starts for them that can give them a chance to win. And that's hard sometimes out of that number 5 spot in a rotation. Your number 5 spot doesn't need to be elite. Rarely in baseball is it. I mean, there's teams that have openers, one turn through a rotation or, unproven starters within a rotation. That's commonplace, obviously. So I completely get him competing for a job. Just you look at, who he was coming up with these sub-3 ERAs and all these playoff wins and some of these epic performances. And you see it. It's like seared in your brain because you've seen it on television and specifically through the lens of being a Padres fan or here in San Diego. You think you know who he is, but I don't think that's who he is, unfortunately. And that's okay. Now, I don't think many people are sold on the idea that Walker Buehler is going to lead them to the promised land. Now, can he be a piece? You need a lot of pieces. I know Mike Schilt would talk about this. I mean, you basically need like 60 players over the course of the year in the major leagues, right? With relievers and bench pieces and promotions and relegations and injuries that you're going to need a wide cast of characters to help get you there. When you get there, hopefully Walker Buehler is a reason as to why. He's one of the reasons as to why once you're there. Who knows if he can help you or not. But yeah, it's a long way of saying that I would have made the move too, but I wouldn't make the move under the premise that this is solving my issues. It could, but I wouldn't have made the move because I'm guaranteed or I'm certain that it's going to work.
Do you think it's more likely that he makes the club or Marquez makes it?
See, yeah. I mean, maybe that's kind of the literal $1 million question because they're not making more than that is my assumption. Man, that's great. It goes back to your point of like, you need a village. So they'll probably need both of them.
They'll both make 7 starts and get cut
They'll
loose.
both get, yeah. I mean, that is such a fascinating question because German Marquez, of course, has never had the high profile of Walker Buehler and had a worse year last year off Tommy John than Walker Buehler, but has pitched this division a long time. Has had success. He has. You look at his career numbers. He's got 68 wins in the major leagues. He's got a 4.6 career ERA that's elevated off last year. And again, you have to consider the fact that his home ballpark for his entire career has been Coors Field. I don't know, Brent. I mean, that's a great question. Is there a scenario where both of them make the team, like Kevin said, or you get like 6 or 8 days into the season, and because all of a sudden now you've gone through an off day or two, and they're going to play 6 consecutive games, you use both Marquez and potentially Buehler. And by the way, and Kevin made this point, we're probably not forgetting, but what we're doing is we're taking these veterans and we're putting them ahead of other people already in the organization. JP Sears, Matt Waldron, Tristan McKenzie, right? That's what we're doing with like the shiny new object. And we do that in sports. I think a lot of times in baseball, you hear a name and you convince yourself it's just going to make sense. Juan Soto, Xander Bogaerts, right? You're convinced. I mean, I was certainly convinced with Juan Soto. I don't remember our exact tenor and tone when they signed Xander Bogaerts. I know it was positive because the Padres were willing to commit real dollars to win, and we thought they were getting a player, in his prime. And Xander hasn't been that player. But oftentimes in baseball, you just hear a name and you're like, "Oh man, that's surefire. We're not gonna miss on that." And then you get into the regular season and the length of it and the marathon that it is. And there's all this adversity and there's all these highs and lows, and what you think you got, you didn't necessarily get. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, 6-man rotation for me that Kevin touched on earlier, I've never been a fan of it. And there's two reasons why. One is the amount of time off between starts, where in a 5-man rotation, obviously one fewer day. And now if there's an off day built in there somewhere as well, you're now 7 days between starts, which to me is a day or two too long. And here's the other issue I've always had with the 6-man rotation. If you have one or two pitchers that have separated from the other four, wouldn't you want them pitching more often than every 6th game? So like if Nick Pivetta every time out is a 2.55 ERA, wouldn't you want him making 32 starts as opposed to 27 starts? Because in a 6-man rotation, he'll start 27 times. In a 5-man rotation, hypothetically speaking, he would start 32 times. Therefore, maybe you've got 5 better chances to win the times he's out there on the mound for you. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That's always been in my head, and I've always seen it through that lens or prism. But it's not like, I mean, to be honest, it's not like the Padres have, a Cy Young candidate heading into the year. King's coming off injury. Musgrove's coming off injury. And Pivetta was awesome last year, and we'll see if he could replicate it. I wouldn't call him a Cy Young frontrunner heading into, the upcoming season. Certainly, I don't think he's Paul Skeens heading into the year, is my point. So, I mean, I could be convinced either way. I just don't like when you go 6-man rotation and then they have an off day in there. It's like you never pitch. Like you pitch it on Monday and then you pitch again the next Monday. It's too much time, I think. Like, how do you get into a rhythm? And then what happens when you aren't effective? You have to sit a week on it? It's not football. Like sitting a week to me is just too long for a starting pitcher in the major leagues. All right. Again, be listening for that sounder. When you hear it, you can call 877-767-4760 for a chance to qualify to win 2 free tickets to see STFC on Saturday. Plus, we have a jersey giveaway for our grand prize winner, so you can qualify to win the next time you hear that sounder. We have Aztec tickets to give away for their upcoming game against Utah State next Wednesday. We're going to hear from Brian Dutcher on the other side, his immediate post-game reaction after San Diego State's tough loss last night to GCU, Grand Canyon at Viejas Arena. And then Darnay Tripp will join us live at 3:30 from NBC7. Stay with us here on San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760. Darnay Tripp will join us coming up at 3:30 from NBC 7. If you missed our conversation with Kevin Acee, you'll hear that coming up at 4:30. Plus, we have Aztec tickets to give away for the Utah State game a week from tonight, next Wednesday night. San Diego State and Utah State at Viejas Arena. I'm tempted to give those tickets away this hour. So let's do that. We will give those tickets away this hour. Speaking of the Aztecs, and by the way, we'll get into this later in the hour. Did anyone hear Mick Cronin last night? I know some of you did. And just this is my takeaway as I think this through. Like, listen to Brian Dutcher last night, where you're about to hear from him. Now it's me and him having a one-on-one conversation. But think about the way Brian Dutcher, his mannerisms, win or lose. Win or lose, how does Brian Dutcher react to it? Right? He does it from a place of like respect. He does it with class, is my point. He wins with class, he loses with class. And then you're going to hear what Mick Cronin had to say last night after a loss. They got blown out by Michigan State. He took it out on some reporter like it was the reporter's fault. It was a ridiculous exchange last night with Mick Cronin and that reporter. And it's like one of these is not like the other, for whatever it's worth. It's funny because we look back on things at the end of the day. Now I'm going on a tangent. We're going to look back. You're going to look back if you're an Aztec fan one day. And like, how do you remember Steve Fisher as the head coach of San Diego State? Are you remembering the wins, or are you also remembering the class act that Steve Fisher is as a human being and as a coach? Like, is he going to be defined by his record? Nobody knows his record at San Diego State. You know that he and his staff, including Brian Dutcher, turned this thing on its head and did a 180 with the program. But how will he ultimately be remembered? What's his legacy? What's his true legacy? It's the person that he is his true legacy. Yeah, the wins are a part of it, but so is the development of these players, the lives they have after basketball. Anyway, neither here nor there. This was Brian Dutcher post-game for a few minutes. We started it by asking, San Diego State led at the half by 4. What changed in the second half?
They did a better job executing. They got downhill on ball screens, and we were supposed to late switch some of those. We did a good job in the first half. They made some adjustments. We didn't do a good enough job protecting the paint in the second half. We went to switch 5, which I thought was pretty good. They quit getting the rolling posts and the late passes to the rim. But, we didn't play at our best, and that's a credit to Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Like I said, you said earlier, every team in this conference has now suffered a home loss. And I don't know that last time that's happened. Usually the champ wins every home game and then gets enough on the road. But now we all have one loss, and the task is we have to go on the road, find a way to beat a good Colorado State team, and then come back next week and play for first place again. So that's in context. Get a win, play for first again. So the top of this league is very competitive, and we're going to beat each other up. Grand Canyon, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah State are all very good teams at the top. Boise's just a step back. They've suffered some tough losses. And so there is nothing easy down the stretch in this conference. So we have to find a way to put this behind us, learn from it, take responsibility. Coaches take responsibility. Players take responsibility for their part in it, and grow from it. That's all you can do.
It's interesting, Dutch, despite you trailed by 12, maybe 7 or 8 minutes left, you had it to 5 with the ball multiple times, maybe 1 or 2 times in transition, another time coming out of the under 4 media timeout. You would put yourself in position, right? You just couldn't kind of get over the hump and make it a 1-possession game to put some real pressure on GCU late.
Yeah, 13 turnovers.
Yeah.
It shot 35% for the game. So not good enough. Not good enough to win home or road. So obviously disappointing. We had 10 turnovers at their place, 13 turnovers at home. That's too many. Offensive rebounds, surprisingly, we had 12. They had 9.
Yeah.
It felt like they had more. I don't know if maybe they scored more points on theirs than we did, but they had a ton of offensive rebounds. So the second chance opportunities were close, and we had a chance, but we didn't take advantage of opportunities. I mean, it's uncharacteristic. I mean, Reese had a couple balls in his hands he just dropped. BJ did not have his best game today. Tried to be aggressive, get into the paint, but he took some tough runners and they didn't go today. So we all bear responsibility. I got to call a better offensive game to put us in positions to be successful, but it's college basketball, and it's happening somewhere every night.
It really is. How challenging is a team like GCU with they're big and physical, a lot like San Diego State. They're long. I mean, they have size seemingly everywhere, and they're able to get downhill. How challenging is a team like GCU at both ends of the floor?
They're good. I mean, you don't win in this conference without defense. We're the top defense. They're the third-ranked defense in this conference. So they're hard to score on. They are super physical. So they body you. They check you as you drive the basketball. They push you over screens. We knew all that coming into the game, but we didn't do a good enough job handling it.
You're in a situation, though, Dutch, with still 5 games left in the regular season where you're getting healthier. You've gotten Magoon back. It's only been 2 games. You hope to get LZ Harrington back. As you turn the page and look towards Colorado State, you've had so much success, obviously, in this league where if you suffer a loss, you're able to turn the page and have that mentality. What will it take to turn the page and go on the road and get a win?
Just to put this one behind us, the fans got it. They'll dwell on it harder than I will. I got to get us ready for Colorado State. So I'll watch the tape. I'll try to improve myself from how we played today. The team will try to improve themselves. And the next game is the most important one. So we will step up, have 2 good days of practice, and get ready to go to Fort Collins and going to play a good Colorado State team on the road.
Final one, Dutch, would just be on Miles Bird, 18 points tonight. Had the 3-ball fall a little bit. What did you see for Miles that you hope carries over moving forward?
Yeah, he made some hard shots, so it's good to see him put the ball in the basket. At a high level. He missed a couple layups that frustrated him, but Miles played better. So, but we need everybody to play better at the same time to be the team we want to be. So, off night for Reese, good night for Miles. We got to have them both having good nights the same night. Like I said, if you got to have 2 of those 3 have big nights, BJ with either Miles or Reese and BJ or BJ and Miles, 2 of the 3 have to have good nights. So I think 2 of them had off nights, and only Bird had the major production today.
Yeah, only player in double figures for you. Tay Simmons did have 9. I mean, listen, it's a long regular season. You're only 1 game behind Utah State in the loss column. Of course, the Aggies are coming here, but first things first, Colorado State on Saturday in Fort Collins. Dutch, always appreciate the time, win or loss, and we will see you on Saturday in Colorado.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
All right, so again, Brian Dutcher, post-game, again, with the good perspective, I would say. And listen, fans aren't supposed to be coaches. I get frustration. We read the text, and we all have been there. Like Brent's a diehard Bears fan. He sees it through that lens. He doesn't see it through like a coaching lens every single time or the media's. And that's the whole point of fandom. That's a good part of being a fan. I mean, the reason the NFL is popular is their fans are fanatical, right? Same thing with certain college basketball programs. San Diego State would be included. San Diego State's got a great fan base. San Diego Padres have a great fan base. People get upset when the Padres lose a home series to the Colorado Rockies. Understandable. Doesn't mean they can't make the postseason. They've lost home series to the Colorado Rockies and made postseasons in the last half decade. So it was a loss that certainly San Diego State didn't want to suffer, and we'll see how they rebound come Saturday in Fort Collins. We'll have Darnay Tripp join us on the other side. After our conversation with Darnay this hour, we're giving away Aztec tickets for that upcoming home game, the huge home game against Utah State. So we'll do that this hour. Darnay Tripp, buddy from NBC7 on the other side on San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. In NFL news, the Chiefs restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract today, creating much-needed salary cap space ahead of the 2026 season. The new deal takes about a little over $54 million of Mahomes' salary this season and turns it into a signing bonus. Under the terms of the new restructured deal, Mahomes will now count for an additional $11 million against the Chiefs' cap for each of the next 4 seasons. Last night, the Aztecs fell at home to Grand Canyon. Their next game is Saturday afternoon when they go on the road to take on Colorado State. Our pregame coverage with Fletch will start at 2:00, and John will have the tip a little after 3. Wish you could save on home insurance? With Allstate, you could easily save and get quality protection. Yep, it's a win-win. So what are you waiting for? Check Allstate first for a quote today. You're in good hands with Allstate.
All right, let's catch up with our buddy Darnay Tripp from NBC7, who is part of a newly relaunched show on NBC, Sports Night in San Diego, which just had Brian Dutcher on it this past weekend. It's going to have John Schaefer on it coming up as well. Darnay, thanks for hopping on. Let's start there. I'll give you the plug. Tell us about the new show and how our listeners can watch.
Yeah, we're excited about it. For a long time, NBC has had Sunday Night Football through obviously the fall, and NBC has really gone in on live sports on Sunday nights. NBA has started, as you know, had the NBA All-Star Game on Sunday, and Major League Baseball is coming, I believe, in May. I believe the NBA coverage goes through March and April, and then they will transition to Major League Baseball. And so we've been doing Football Night in San Diego for a long time, coming out of Sunday Night Football, and thought, hey, why not expand it, go year round, and open it up a little bit more, a little bit less kind of sports specific. Obviously, once baseball rolls around, the Padres are here. So I'm sure we will spend a lot of those shows discussing the Padres. But in the meantime, like you said, we had Brian Dutcher on after the All-Star Game, which was a very eventful All-Star Game for the Aztecs, and another San Diego connection, the guy that Dutch is familiar with, the Norman Powell. We had Derek Togerson out at Peoria, and we've got SDFC coming this weekend. So we'll be touching on whatever we're coming out of. Again, NBA now, eventually Major League Baseball, and then just kind of expanding to the San Diego sports scene and kind of the big storylines and headlines that you talk about on a daily basis and that are on the minds of sports fans around San Diego. And excited to get you involved and others around San Diego from the teams and obviously the voices that people know about and trust here in town. And so we're excited about it. Again, it was a fun first episode on Sunday with Dutch, and looking forward to what the weeks and months ahead bring.
Yeah, enjoyed the first episode. And again, for our listeners, you can catch it, Sports Night in San Diego on NBC7. So it's been obviously such a newsworthy week for the Padres, whether it was AJ Preller's contract being finalized finally, the pending sale with John Seidler speaking, then all these signings, whether it's Nick Castellanos or guys like Walker Buehler. Where do you start with the last week? What's most impactful that's come out of Peoria over the last 6 or 7 days?
Yeah, I think, there was that important piece of business with AJ Preller that just dragged on for whatever reason. And I think getting that out of the way and no longer having to ask Key and Eric Grupner and John Seidler about it, not that we have too many opportunities to talk to John Seidler, but obviously that is an ongoing issue. What's strange about that is what impact does the owner have on that? And so, it's going to become a question again with he and Eric Grupner and others when the new owner comes around. But I think in the short term, that was important and well-deserved for AJ Preller. But I think for me, it's just, the rounding out of the roster and bringing in some guys that have some pedigree in Major League Baseball. And look, I know you give me a hard time for maybe going too far in the way back machine to talk about what a player has done. But, a guy like Walker Buehler, he's only 31, he's younger than Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta. Nick Castellanos, you're not looking at, him being in the stage of his career of Nelson Cruz and Yuli Gurriel and Matt Carpenter. These are guys that have had some tough stretches but are still at a stage in their career where you feel like in the right environment with maybe the right tweaks, they could be effective. And the mix we were looking at in left field and DH last year was a mess. And thank goodness for Gavin Sheets. But I think you look at the roster as a whole, there's a number of experienced major league pitchers vying for that last spot. And it sounds like Randy Vasquez has done a great job, and he looks good to kind of solidify that fourth spot. And there's a really interesting mix of guys, in kind of that first base DH, competition. So I think for me, it's just the competition we see there. And I just feel like the floor for this roster for this season is higher at this stage than it was last year when there were real question marks. I think the guys they have now, I have greater optimism that they can provide real answers at those spots, first base, DH, and in the rotation.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I agree with you on the depth. My one, I guess, critique, and it took me 2 hours to get to this because I had Annie in studio. Sorry. Yesterday, and it took me nice. It took me 2 hours to formulate the
sweet
opinion.
invite.
What'd you say?
Sweet invite, thanks,
dude. You're always invited. I actually thought about today saying you could come in studio, but
that's what people say when you're not actually invited. They say you're always invited. Well, how come you never actually invite me? But alas, continue.
Well, anyway, I after 2 hours of talking about all these moves, I kind of came to a conclusion of is it better what they did with all the, Herman Marquez and Griffin Canning and Walker Buehler, or was it better to just go sign Chris Bassett? Now, both aren't equal because a Chris Bassett would have cost them ultimately $18 million. And what they did is obviously much more affordable than that, maybe a 10th or a fifth of the cost ultimately. But is it a quantity play? What has more value, the quantity play or the quality play? And I guess it's hard to answer that without knowing how this is all going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And I think even with Chris Bassett, there'd be some,
of course,
probably, not as considerable questions and reason for kind of concern, but there's always questions. What I do think as far as the rotation goes, this hasn't necessarily borne itself out in terms of position players, guys in the lineup, but they've had so much success bringing guys in, whether it's Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo. You go down the list of guys, making the transition with Michael King from bullpen to starter. There's been a lot of success stories. Nick Pivetta last year, guys they've brought in kind of below the radar signings that, maybe it's where they were in their career. Maybe it's Ruben Niebla. Maybe it's pitching in a pretty pitcher-friendly ballpark, but they've had some success. And so I think from that standpoint, you have the track record. It seems like guys are excited to come here. They know of the recent history from that regard. So I think it makes sense to kind of go this path. And I mean, there's just so many guys that have died. Tristan McKenzie's only 28 years old. Now, as you would tell me, 2022 is a long time ago, but he's only 28 years old. He had success under Ruben Niebla. Herman Marquez, we're familiar with him. Walker Buehler, obviously. I kind of like the path that they're going. And I mean, I just feel like the odds are in their favor for one of these guys being at least serviceable. And the fact of the matter is, what was Dylan Cease's ERA last year? Not that you want to repeat that, sure, but if that's essentially who you're replacing in some regard, that's, a guy that had a 4.5, 5 ERA last year. You're not replacing a guy that just had ace stuff game in and game out. So you're not looking for the rotation. You just need somebody to round things out. And I hope they've got the bodies that somewhere in there they can find that guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. The way you position it there, I think that is a reasonable way to look at it, that someone will emerge and potentially help this team get to the postseason. Then there's Nick Castellanos. And I was a believer in the days leading up and learning that Philadelphia was likely to release him. I said that on a flyer deal, there was a lot to like there, and I would look the other way with some of the stuff that's being reported out of Philadelphia, for example. Would you agree with that it's probably, maybe there's some baggage, but it's worth the risk, considering there isn't that much risk because you're not signing him to some long-term deal. If it doesn't work, he could walk essentially. If it does work, maybe you're getting a guy that even a year ago hit 17 home runs, and even within the last 2 years, I think he's hit 23 home runs.
Yeah, and I think, if you asked me right after reading Matt Gelb's piece in The Athletic, and I think that's when we did our podcast, and I was like,
Right.
I don't know, man. And then the deal gets done, and you hear what he had to say, and you hear what others around the organization, Manny and Salmon and Preller, had to say. And I'm like, okay, it seems like everybody's on board. Everybody's aware of what's going on. I think Castellanos had some good things to say, like learning from the experience, what he needs to do going forward. He seems to have respect for players, and he's now playing for a guy who was a player not that long ago, who doesn't have the managerial chops, but he has the history of being a big leaguer. And so, and I think to your point, you're getting he wasn't a 20 million in terms of performance, a 20 million per year type of guy last year, but a guy that was thought of enough to get that type of contract on, basically a minimum salary as far as what it's going to cost the Padres. I think it makes complete and total sense. And again, just kind of raising the floor of the team, giving them enough options as possible, enough guys that could be impactful. And if there is a breakup and it doesn't work out, it's going to be not nearly, I would think, as messy a breakup as what he experienced in Philly, because they had the history, because they gave him the contract, and because of things that have happened. Like, if it doesn't work out, you can just DFA the guy and move on with your lives. But I think banking on the upside and believing that you have the clubhouse in place and guys that he's familiar with and friendly with to kind of ease things in. And I even thought, there was on Twitter a video of him today, and you heard, I think he hit a ball to the wall or something. He heard a big roar from the dugout. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. It's like they're getting behind each other. I think stuff like that. It's small, but I think it's an encouraging sign.
Yeah, I would agree. Final one for you, Darnay, would just be on San Diego State. I just want your thoughts. I mean, obviously you spent last weekend talking with Dutch in studio. You watch these games like a lot of our listeners do as well. I mean, it's been unique to some extent. There have been some highs, there have been some lows, including last night, obviously, at Viejas Arena. What do you make of where the Aztecs are and what's still possible down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they certainly have to win out in the regular season to have a chance of getting at large. And, there's the games there with Utah State, New Mexico, and Boise State to be the resume boosters. And then you kind of root for Grand Canyon as well,
right?
In the meantime. But, it's just been a tough kind of sort of herky-jerky season. There were stretches where they weren't healthy, where they were playing really, really good basketball, and you saw the depth. And then, they get healthy again, and just finding the right rotations and combinations and minutes for these guys has seemed to be a challenge. And, you're hopeful for Magoon Guath after what he did on Saturday, and then he doesn't have a great game. And same thing for Reese Dixon Waters has been awesome during the Mountain West and has a tough shooting night when Miles Bird gets it going. And so it's just been tough to kind of get the right guys going at the right time. The talent is there. You just hope Magoon continues to get healthy and maybe he hits his stride in March, which would be the perfect time. Yeah. Obviously, it'd be great to see LD Harrington back. It's like I'll always believe the pieces are there because you look at the roster and there's so many guys that can do things. It's just putting it together from night in and night out. And, we've done it with the Padres where they show us enough signs. We're like, okay, at some point you just have to believe that that's who this team is. And maybe it'd be easier for all of us to be like, okay, they just need to get it together in Vegas. And that's what it's going to come down to. Again, I think they have opportunities to avoid that where maybe they don't necessarily have to win the whole thing. But it's moving in that direction. And, you just hope Dutch can kind of have the magic touch game in and game out with the rotations and with the minutes, the combinations of guys to win, because that's been, like I said, a bit of a challenge to this point in the season.
And it is the nitty gritty. There's no doubt. I mean, their margin is as thin as it's going to be, and they do need to win games here down the stretch. Or, like you said, there's always the Mount West tournament in Las Vegas. Darnay, you're always welcome. Anytime in studio.
We'll see you in a month or so.
Appreciate you doing it. Watch Darnay on Sports Night and on NBC7. And yeah, I'm going to be with you when? In March at some point?
I believe so. Yeah.
I think we're, so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
All right.
You're always invited, John.
There we go. All right. Thanks, Darnay.
Thanks, dude.
All right. We'll give away Aztec tickets for the Utah State game a week from tonight on the other side, right here on San Diego Sports 760. All right, I do want to give away Aztec tickets within the next, let's say, 8 minutes. So don't go anywhere. Aztec tickets for Utah State at Viejas Arena next Wednesday night. Utah State right now is in first place in the league. They would be a game clear of the Aztecs if they beat Boise State tonight. If they lose to Boise at home, San Diego State is back into a tie for first place in the Mountain West Conference. Either way, next Wednesday is a huge game for the Aztecs. We have tickets we'll give away in the next 7 or 8 minutes. Do we have Mick Cronin? Okay. So I don't even know what to say. Listen, Mick Cronin is a very good coach. His record speaks for itself. He's had a lot of success as a college head coach. He's also very well known for his interactions with the media. And he's not always the best 10 minutes after a game, win or lose. Okay. And I think we respect that. I appreciate that. I understand that. Sometimes you get, up in arms about your team and now you have to talk about it with the media. But he went too far yesterday. All right. So let's hear this. What do you got?
And we have to preface that earlier during the game, he actually ejected one of his own players after they committed a hard foul.
Yeah,
yes.
They had committed a hard foul with 5 minutes left, down 27 from behind on a player that was going up for a slam.
Tells you what kind of head state he's in.
And Mick Cronin physically removed this player. The player was not ejected from the game by the referees. He was sent to the locker room by Mick Cronin. It was bizarre. You're right. That came within 5 minutes to play. They get blown out again. They lost to Michigan by 30. They lost to Michigan State by 30. They're hanging on to their NCAA tournament lives. And listen to this interaction postgame between Mick Cronin and a reporter.
What was your thoughts in the student section chanting Booker's name?
I could give a rat's ass about the other team's student section.
I just meant the overall the way that you
I would like to give you a kudos for the worst question I've ever been asked.
Did you like
You should take it.
the preparation of
Do you really think I care about the other team's
No, I
student
don't
section?
think you care about the
Are
other.
you raising your voice at me?
No, I'm
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Come on, dude.
not raising.
Come on. Yes, you are. Everybody's standing here listening to you. Everybody. This is on camera. They can hear you. I answered the question. I could give a rat's ass about the other team's student section. I coach UCLA. I don't care about Michigan State students. I mean, who cares?
It's such a bad look. So bad. I mean, to talk down to someone, to be that demeaning to someone doing their job. You may not like the question, just like you might not like the way a player cuts or rebounds or shoots. Like, he's just doing his job. It doesn't have to be the most buttoned up question in sports history. You can at least give him the decency to answer it, and just move on.
And, he's the reason it kept going. Because he answered it instead of just answering it and then just letting it go. He had to throw in that jab of, "Oh, well, you got the word of being the dumbest question I've ever been asked."
Are you raising your? And by the way, he wasn't raising his voice. I mean, listen to that interaction. Like, I was not raising his voice. And by the way, if he was, does he work for you, Mick? Does he report? You have a right to tell him what he can and cannot do.
Yeah, no, he instantly started condescending him like he's 11 years old. Did you just raise your voice at an adult?
You tell me what's worse. We didn't play it, but Jerome Tang, the Kansas State head coach who was just let go, he was fired with cause, who basically, in a moment of frustration, 10 minutes after a game, called out his players and said, a lot of them aren't going to be here because they haven't earned the right to wear this uniform. They fire him for cause. And then you hear Mick Cronin's interaction last night with a reporter that was probably it was like more ridiculous, clearly.
Me personally, I think this is worse.
Yeah.
The K-State guy, his criticisms were all about basketball and the game. He wasn't sitting there. He didn't rip on a reporter for asking why they lost the game and then all of a sudden start treating him like he's some little kid and he's, his fourth grade teacher is like, "Did you just raise your voice at me, young man, and ask me that question?" And is just, I think this is a worse look because at least the K-State guy, yeah, he took some maybe slightly unfair shots at student athletes, but at least it was all about basketball.
Yeah, it wasn't a question.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I will say this. When you're putting people in front of microphones, they're going to say things. That's kind of the point. And the questions are not prescripted. So, of course, some of these questions that are asked, understandably, are not the best questions in the world. But as a coach or as an athlete, you have to find a way to get through it. You're talking about 3 to 5 minutes of time on average, maybe 7 minutes. Obviously, what Mick Cronin did there yesterday, and you're right, it wouldn't have been a viral clip if he stopped after the initial thing. I could give a rat's, about Michigan State students.
Well,
that wouldn't have been a national viral moment.
And he keeps sitting there going, oh, you think I give a rat's ass? Well, yeah, you must, because you're throwing a fit about it. If you really didn't give a rat's ass about it, you would have just answered the question and shut the hell up and moved on to the next question. But you lingered on it, and you had to take a rip at the reporter and keep harping about it. It's like one of those things where, like I have a friend who claims that the Bears cheese grater hat doesn't bother him. But yet,
he talks about it.
But yet he posted about it, complaining like 4 times in a 2-week period. But it doesn't bother him at all.
Right.
But he keeps bringing it up and is all pissed off about it. It's just like this. Oh, I don't care about their fans, but I'm going to keep complaining and get all mad because you even insinuated that I cared about something their fans said.
It does go back to a general point about adding in the West Coast teams to the Big Ten, because I think it was John Rothstein that said last night. Never. I could be wrong. Here it is. John Rothstein, the CBS reporter who's Mr. College Basketball, said that none of these 4 programs will ever win a Big Ten regular season title. You're talking about programs that are iconic, UCLA, or have resources, Oregon, USC. Now Washington's had success historically in the Pac-12. And I agree with the overall sentiment. And for all of the emphasis on football, and for all the money is attached to it, it's to the detriment of these West Coast basketball programs. And those 4 programs, by the way, Brent, this year, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, USC, are 6 and 19 outside the Pacific time zone. How are they ever going to consistently win?
I brought up either this week or last week when we were kind of talking about this, that when we were talking about just the stupid geographical alignment of conferences, I think UCLA and them are going to come back to the Pac-12.
There'll be a different basketball league one day, won't there?
Because a program like UCLA, John Wooden, all those national championships, Kareem, all that stuff. You're just gonna fade into mediocrity and just be happy with being the 16th team out of 22 teams or whatever they'll have by that time in the Big Ten. I can't see them doing that. For football, sure, I mean, they'll take the check and just take the L's in football. But I think they have too much pride in basketball that I just can't see them doing that.
It's insane. All right, on the other side, we're gonna get to the wrap, but call right now, caller 8. You have 2 free tickets to see the Aztecs against the Aggies. Utah State, San Diego State next Wednesday night at Viejas. 877-767-4760. Should be an awesome atmosphere and game and experience. San Diego State and Utah State here in San Diego. 877-767-4760. Caller 8, you are going. The wrap is on the other side. We are here until 6 p.m. If you miss Kevin Acee, you'll hear from him coming up at 4:30. This is San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by Audible. In NFL news, the Chiefs restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract today, creating salary cap space ahead of the 2026 season. The new deal takes a little over $54 million of Mahomes' salary for this year and converts it into a signing bonus. Under the new terms of the restructured deal, Mahomes will now count for an additional $11 million against KC's cap for each of the next 4 seasons. Last night, the Aztecs fell to Grand Canyon at Viejas Arena. Their next game is Saturday afternoon when they go on the road to take on Colorado State. Our pregame coverage will begin at 2:00, and John will have the tip after 3. It's time to take care of you. Who better to help you than the top voices in well-being on Audible? Kickstart your well-being journey with your first audiobook free when you sign up for a 30-day trial at audible.com/wellbeing.
All right, back with you here on San Diego Sports 760. If you missed Kevin Acey, good insight on all things Padres from Peoria, including AJ Preller and Walker Buehler, the idea of a 6-man rotation to start the year and more. You'll hear from Kevin coming up at 4:30. We just gave away some Aztec tickets for next Wednesday. We'll have more tickets to give away, I do believe, tomorrow for San Diego State. Also tomorrow on the show, JD Wicker. And we'll get into this maybe in the next 10 minutes, Brett. San Diego State announcing yesterday that they have lowered football season ticket prices. And some of those tickets have been significantly lowered. So we'll get into that coming up in about 10 or so minutes. And what will that mean for the Aztecs in terms of filling Snapdragon Stadium? And JD will join us with more tomorrow, I believe, at 3 p.m.
And we'll probably have multiple Aztec Utah State tickets tomorrow.
Is that because of Friday?
Yeah.
What's the deal with Friday's show?
What's going to happen on Friday is
I'm going to be traveling.
Yep, you're going to be gone to Colorado State.
Colorado State, yeah.
J-Riff's doing like water polo play-by-play or something like that. Not really, but he's got something going on, so he can't do it. And he's always doing play-by-play somewhere. So J-Riff can't do it. So what's going to happen is Fletch and Sammy are going to go until 2. And then me and Sammy are going to go from 2 until 3. And then
what happens?
Then we're going to go to Fox. So if you tune in at 5 and it's not us, don't panic again. You know, we didn't get fired. So it's just John's gone.
We probably didn't.
Yeah.
To the best of our knowledge, we didn't. But
yeah. So just a heads up then for Friday.
Yeah, because Friday I am traveling with the team. The thing with some of the trips I did earlier in the year were very easy for me to do day of. San Jose. Right, Las Vegas. You play at 8 o'clock at night. I can go at 7 in the morning, and with certainty, you should be there. Now, sure, I missed my flight to San Jose because I just sat at the gate like an idiot.
Well, the thing with Colorado, you always have to worry about snow.
That's it. And Fort Collins is 65 miles from Denver. So, like, once I get to Denver,
then you got to drive.
What am I doing? Hitchhiking? I mean, who knows? So the point is, I'm going when the team goes, which is Friday afternoon. So yeah, but be listening beginning at noon on Friday. But yeah, we'll have pairs of tickets potentially tomorrow to give away for San Diego State and Utah State. Again, listen for that sounder. We are qualifying listeners every hour for SDFC's home opener, which is their season opener against Montreal on Saturday at Snapdragon Stadium. One listener that qualifies will also be winning a jersey from SDFC. So the grand prize winner for those tickets and jersey will be announced on Friday. Of course, San Diego Sports 760 is your home for SDFC here in San Diego. All right, right now let's get to this.
It's time for the wrap. Presented by Sombrero Mexican Food. Check out their website at sombreromex.com.
What was your reaction to Steve Lavin being let go by USD?
So, Steve Lavin has been at USD, I want to say, for the last 4 years. And he will actually finish the year, but he has been made aware that he will be let go. They're 11-17 this year. In WCC play, they're 18-47. This is not a surprise. He did have a year in which they went 18-15. That was a couple years ago where they did play well. They've had some moments in there. I would just say this. Here's what I would say about Steve Lavin, because I was fortunate enough to speak with him prior to some game that I called. Maybe it was San Diego State USD. And he hopped on the phone with me for 15 or 20 minutes. He could not have been more kind and gracious. I thought he was a wonderful, wonderful person in our conversation. So this is the business. I mean, when you go 18-47 in conference play, it means you're not going to be retained. It doesn't take away from, I really do respect and appreciate him. And he's done good work. I mean, he had some very good teams at UCLA. He had a good team or two, I want to say, at St. John's. But, it's the business of college sports right now. You go 1847 to the WCC, they're going to move on. So it's not surprising. But again, I just wanted to make the point that I've appreciated and respected Steve Lavin his time here in San Diego.
He always reminded me of like a mini Pat Riley because he always slicked his hair back just like Riles did.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say that, there were some excellent UCLA teams. Yeah. I mean, excellent. He was on staff when they went to, did they win the Natty in 95? Yeah, he was on that staff.
Yeah, the Toby Bailey.
Yeah, exactly. So he's had a decorated career. It's just, the sport is changing. It's hard. Now, I would say this about San Diego, USD. Without Gonzaga in the WCC, administrators at USD might say, hey, there's a path here to put ourselves in a better position in this league. Still isn't easy. There's still St. Mary's. There's still some other programs. Santa Clara has played well. USF, I think, is invested. But I think there's a path for San Diego USD to finish maybe in the top half of the WCC at some point moving forward. Next question.
Would you take OKC or the field to win the NBA Finals?
So OKC at Vegas, in Vegas, is the favorite to win the Finals, and that's not surprising. They're a substantial favorite. There's something like plus 130, and the second shortest odds are something like plus 500. It might be Denver, actually, or San Antonio. I'm not sure. But I would take the field. I think Oklahoma City is somewhat susceptible. They certainly have been against San Antonio. I know they're not fully healthy either. I still like their chances. I'm not telling you they're not going to win the Finals, but I think among all of the teams that are going to be in the postseason, I would take the others collectively over just Oklahoma City. What do you think?
I think OKC over the field. Yeah.
They'll turn it on at the right time. I mean,
I think it's funny because remember they went on that hot start and like through their first 23 games, everyone was like, "Oh, are they gonna, outdo the 73-win Warriors team?" And they're on pace to do this. And then they lost 3 games in a row, and then everyone just lost their mind. Right. And it was just like, "Oh my God, is OKC? They're gonna be fine." It's like you said, they're not fully healthy yet.
They're not fully healthy. They'll turn it on.
Jalen Williams barely plays as of right now.
Shay's missed time.
And I always like to compare the Shaq and Kobe Lakers teams that once they got in their groove, they were bored with the regular season. And they didn't care until about the last month and a half of the regular season because they used that as their tune-up to get ready for the playoffs. And I think OKC got off to such a hot start that they just kind of felt I think they felt unchallenged until San Antonio came and punched them in the mouth. But, there's no guarantee that they'll even end up having to play San Antonio. Yeah. So I'll take OKC unless, Shay's injury gets worse than what it, is now. But yeah, I still think the Thunder is going to win. Easy.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, they're 42-14. They're going to go 60-22. I mean, this is an elite team, obviously. They will win the West. They're only 3 games out of San Antonio. There's a very high likelihood they'll win the Western Conference at regular season and get the 1 seed. Next question.
Would you take the Doyers or the field to win the World Series?
This, I would clearly take the field. And there's a couple of reasons why. There's way more irregularities in Major League Baseball postseason series, although the Dodgers, to their credit, have won the last 2 World Series. Although none of them have been easy. There's nothing been easy about the last 2, championships for the Dodgers, whether it was the Padres series 2 years ago or the Blue Jays series, for example, last year. In the World Series, no way. There's way too much variance. I'm not saying they're not going to do it, but answering the question, the field or LA, I would 100 out of 100 times take the field. And I'm not telling you LA is not going to win 100 games or be among the favorites. They probably will be, but at some point, maybe some of it runs out. Some of the, I'm not calling it luck, but somewhere along the way, whether the Arizona Diamondbacks caught him in 2023, the Padres caught him in 2022, it can certainly happen again.
I'll call it luck. It is what it is. That's part of sports. Baseball. Sometimes you need, luck to help you out a little bit. And, you don't essentially win a World Series Game 7 by less than half of an inch without a little bit of luck.
It was ridiculous.
And I don't think that's a knock.
But. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Final question.
Can the Aztecs still make the NCAA tournament as an at-large team?
Yeah, this will surprise people. I think a lot of people last night, and I understand it, not every one of us is crunching numbers all night, and not everyone is at bracketology.org first thing in the morning or whatever sites I go to. But it is possible for them to make it as an at-large team. It's just becoming less likely, specifically off the loss last night to Grand Canyon, which is, of course, damaging from a metric perspective. It wasn't an anvil on their resume or their metrics, but obviously, if you're going one way or the other, positive or negative, it was a negative on their resume. I think what they're being asked to do basically right now is potentially go 5-0 down the stretch. I think if they do that, they'd have 3 more quad one wins and they would be in. Now that's really hard. They're going to the pit. They're going to Boise. They have Utah State here. I kind of wonder if they went 4-1 down the stretch and won 2 of those quad one games and then won a game or 2 in the Mountain West tournament, if they could put themselves in position to get in. Now you'd be sweating it out. But they would absolutely be in full bubble conversation if they go, in my opinion, 4-1 down the stretch and let's say lost in the Mountain West championship game. I think they'd be in full bubble mode at that point. So again, that's going to be hard to do, to play that well down the stretch. So they got a couple of paths. One of them is maybe you go 5-0 to finish the regular season. Maybe that gets you in. Maybe you don't do that and you still sure up a good seed in the Mountain West tournament and you win the Mountain West tournament. Let's not forget Brian Dutcher has coached in 7 Mountain West championships in 8 years. So it's not like it's unfamiliar territory for them to win a couple of games in Las Vegas. But this league is capable once again. I mean, the league's been very good the last 3 or 4 years, and San Diego State's been challenged, obviously, over the course of the last couple of years, and they've been able to get into the NCAA tournament, even when they haven't won necessarily the Mountain West regular season or even the Mountain West tournament in Las Vegas. So it's a long way of me saying I don't think they are incapable of reaching the tournament as an at-large team. I just think it's more challenging than it was 24 hours ago. And I also don't think they're incapable of winning the Mountain West tournament, which, I still feel the same way today as I probably felt yesterday, which is they'll be a tough out. Of course they will be. So there's still paths. There's still routes to the NCAA tournament for the Aztecs. We'll see if they can pick themselves back up Saturday when they play Colorado State in Fort Collins. If you missed Kevin Acee, you will hear a conversation coming up at 4:30. A little bit more on San Diego State, again, lowering its football season ticket packages for 2026 as they enter the Pac-12. So some information to share on that. On the other side, again, JD Wicker will join us tomorrow. You'll hear from Kevin Acee coming up at 4:30 here on San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760. Again, if you missed our conversation with Kevin Acee, you're going to hear that coming up at 4:30. Kevin live from Peoria, our Padres Insider back again in 2026 on San Diego Sports 760. So it was notable, I think, that San Diego State announcing yesterday the lower pricing on season tickets in 2026. So ticket prices will drop in 2026. Now that's the season ticket packages. We'll see what it means for individual tickets. But all of a sudden, like I honestly don't believe, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, 70470 started with the word team. Or call in 877-767-4760. I think it's kind of hard to look at the ticket pricing and use it as something to prevent you from going to see an Aztec game at Snapdragon Stadium. It really is. I mean, you can get in now on a season ticket. I'm trying to pull up exactly what it is. You can get in on a season ticket for definitely less than $30 a game. It's like, how much lower are you going to go than that? You know what I mean? It's like, well, if they had tickets for $20, I would go. Like $30, I think, for a modern venue like Snapdragon, which is a very good fan experience. I'm sorry, listen, I'm calling the games, but I've been there for SDFC. I've been there for Wave. I've been there for concerts. I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers there. It's got all the amenities and it's a great experience from a fan perspective. Is it not? I don't think they're getting knocks in that area. It's like if you can get into the building, and by the way, San Diego State last year won 9 games and went 6-0 at home. So I think they did their part in terms of putting together the product that people were looking for. I think people are high on the Aztecs heading into 2026 under Sean Lewis. I think the expectations are they'll be very good in the Pac-12. And now you can get in. Here it is. The cheapest season ticket for the upcoming season is $175 for the entirety of the season ticket. I mean, are you going to do better than that? Like, I think it's very reasonable. And by the way, the most expensive season ticket is $775 for the entire year. That's the most expensive season ticket, which is what? I mean, there's 6 games, $120 per game. And then the cheapest, again, is in the neighborhood of, someone do the math for it, $25 a game. 6 times 2, whatever it is, right? $30 a game, $29 a game, somewhere in there. It's under $30 per game. So it's like they build a stadium. They are now having success on field. You can get in for $30. I think it pays dividends. I really do. I think a year ago when San Diego State had some of its flash sales and you could get in for like, I don't know, 4-pack for $20 a ticket or $20 or $25 per seat. I think that did resonate with San Diegans. And I think by making season tickets accessible in the neighborhood of, whatever the math is on that, $25, $29 per game. And I think you can sit lower level for $25 to $29 per game. Now we'll see what it means for season ticket pricing, but if there's also similar drops single game tickets, then again, I think you're taking out one of the reasons that people use, like, well, I would go, but the tickets are too expensive. I mean, we're in a huge American city. They built a brand new stadium. It costs $18 to see SpongeBob SquarePants at the movies. I mean, shouldn't it kind of cost $28 to see college football? I mean, should it not? It to me, like, if it cost $8, it'd be like, well, how could you possibly get in for $8? What can you possibly do anywhere in San Diego for $8?
Did you have to take Jones to SpongeBob, and this is secretly just your rant for having to go to the movies?
I don't know how much it was. I went to like one of those theaters, Brent, where they like bring food to you. I mean, you have to order.
Yeah. Those are the more expensive ones. Yeah.
I had never done that ever. And like the seats like reclining. I passed out for like an hour and 10 of the hour and 12-minute movie. It wasn't great, by the way. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh no, you didn't have glowing reviews for the SpongeBob movie.
It was kind of cute, but I felt like they could have done better. But then again, what do you do with SpongeBob for like an hour and 40 minutes?
I don't really think that you're their core demographic. Their target
audience, but Jones was into it. Anyway, and am I wrong, Brent? How much is a movie? If I just show up tonight to a theater?
Oh yeah, if you go to like IMAX, it's $25-$30.
That's kind of my point. Like, it's entertainment. And again, they were successful a year ago. People wanted a modern stadium. You get the modern stadium. I don't know the pricing. I'm not sure. Like SDFC obviously has had a lot of success in terms of drawing people through the gates. And I'm not exactly sure their pricing strategy. I'd have to imagine San Diego State's in line with it. I would have to imagine getting in for under $30 is. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see what impact it has at the gates in 2026. I love the home schedule. James Madison's coming here. They were in the playoff this past year. It's the first year in general in the Pac-12. I know Fresno State is coming here. Washington State is coming here. I think the first ever Texas State Pac-12 game is here in San Diego as well. We'll catch up more with JD Wicker on it tomorrow. But I think here's the one thing that, again, when people say like your prices are too high, and then when an organization responds to that, it'll be interesting to see the way San Diegans respond to San Diego State lowering their pricing. Because they've done it across the board, by the way. It's not just one section or one price. All of the tickets have gone down. I mean, some of them have gone down, I'm trying to find it here, in the neighborhood of like 15%. And the prices from year one to where they are have gone down significantly. It's like, I think they've done enough to this point to get people through the doors. I really do. And it will be interesting to see the response of San Diegans. Now, they had a little bit of bad luck. Remember last year against Boise State, it poured. Now, the Aztecs played great. They won the game, and they were in position to like play for a Mountain West championship at home, heading into the final game of the year. They were in double overtime, needing to score to host a championship game, and they didn't. New Mexico won the game. But I just think that off the success they had last year, with the attention they received, I think they had good response to some of the promotions they did last year with some of the flash sales. I think they can take that next step forward at the gates in 2026. And I'm interested to see if they're able to do that or not, obviously.
Yeah, because a lot of people they're running out of excuses. If they thought the ticket prices were too high, well, the prices are being lowered. They didn't think that the brand of football was exciting enough. Sean Lewis has changed that, and he's picked it up more, and they're starting to win. I think we still have a small portion of people that went to that opening day game when just happened to be like the hottest day in like San Diego history. Sure. And then they just assume that, every game's like that, if I went to a game once or I went to the beach one day and
it was cold
and it was kind of chilly. So I'm never going to the beach again, because that means that every time I go to the beach, it's going to be kind of cold and chilly, to where it's like, no, just, put some context into it, that it was like one of the hottest days in the city's history, and, just give them another shot. What are the odds that you're going to go again and it's going to be the second hottest day in history?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's the perception is reality, or you only get one chance to make a first impression. But I think for those that have attended in the years that have since followed, I think generally, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I think generally the experience has been a very positive one. And I think it only becomes more positive by getting in there for less dollars in 2026, or less money. All right. On the other side, we'll hear from Kevin Acee from Peoria. What is the Padres' plan for the rotation? Where will Walker Buehler fit in? We'll hear from Kevin Acee on the other side, right here on San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by Audible. In NFL news, the Chiefs restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract today, creating much-needed salary cap space ahead of the 2026 season. The new deal takes a little over $54 million of Mahomes' 2026 salary and converts it into a signing bonus. Under the new terms of the restructured deal, Mahomes will now count for an additional $11 million against KC's cap for each of the next 4 seasons. Last night, the Aztecs fell at home at Viejas Arena to Grand Canyon. Their next game is Saturday afternoon when they go on the road to take on Colorado State. Our pregame coverage with Fletch will start at 2:00, and John will have the tip a little after 3. It's time to take care of you. Who better to help you than the top voices in well-being on Audible? Kickstart your well-being journey with your first audiobook free when you sign up for a 30-day trial at audible.com/wellbeing.
All right, the Brian Dutcher Show tomorrow at 6. I'll sit down with Dutch as we look ahead to Saturday at Colorado State. It's the Brian Dutcher Show Thursdays at 6 on your home for the Aztecs, San Diego Sports 760. All right, if you missed Kevin Acee earlier from Peoria, a lot to discuss. It's when I was joined earlier with Sammy Long as well. We started the conversation asking Kevin about the possibilities and the pros and cons of considering either a 5-man or a 6-man rotation for the Padres in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, it mainly has to do with Michael King and Joe Musgrove. Joe obviously didn't pitch last year with the Tommy John. Michael King made 15 starts. What was it, 72 innings? And they've always said they were going to be careful with these guys at the beginning. And I say credit to Fletch and Sammy yesterday for asking me and kind of jarring me loose from just my, I guess I was just, taking it for granted. And I still think that they're not going to have a 6-man rotation to start the season. They are off after 3 games. They play 3 more. They are off. So that's 2 off days in the first, 8 days. I think Nick Pivetta likes to go quick. So I think they're not going to start with the 6-man. What I think is after that, they play 10 in a row and that they'll call up somebody to make at least one start in that time. But they've said all along that while these guys, King and Joe, and King and Musgrove are healthy, they're going to be careful with them.
Kevin, what's up, man? When you look at the WBC, you got Bogarts, Tatis and Machado, all these guys heading out for that. How are they going to kind of do rosters during that time during spring training? Are certain guys going to get call-ups for chances?
Well, yeah, sure, absolutely. But also, they have a lot of competition in camp. I mean, I actually don't think so. I think I could pretty much tell you the 13 position players are going to be on there. But nonetheless, they've got guys playing new positions. They've got some competition. So guys are going to get more playing time. I remember last time it was like they had a bunch of minor leaguers. They had a pretty set roster. That's kind of part of the problem, right? They had this set roster and a bunch of guys were at the WBC. And so Cronenworth was playing every day. And it was crazy. This time, Ty France gets a shot. Bryce Johnson, who's probably going to be the backup center fielder, he gets to play some. Nick Castellanos gets to play a few different positions. Miguel Andujar gets to play a few different positions. Gavin Sheets gets a lot of work at first base. So, you got Sun Moon Song, who will play a lot of positions and is, playing his first year in the major leagues. So there's really a benefit to it. I'm not trying to sell this as, hey, it's great that, key players are going to be gone, but hey, maybe it is, if those guys that are gone handle it better than they have in the past in terms of not getting so up for these games and then coming back and having that week or so, depending on when they get eliminated, or they win the whole thing. And then it's just hard to just sort of keep it going into the season. Maybe they can handle it better. And then the guys who got to play back in the Cactus League and be a part of camp and step up and kind of create their own identity in the clubhouse and all that, maybe it will be a good thing.
Kevin Acee is our Padres Insider. He's with us right now on San Diego Sports 760. You also wrote about this idea that because of the WBC, yes, there'll be opportunities when the players are out. But before the WBC, players like Machado, Tatis, and Bogarts are going to get way more opportunities than they typically would, right? You're normally easing everyday players into spring training. That may not be the case this time around.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, that's definitely going to be the case. Now, what does that look like? Do they play 2 innings, get hopefully, get 2 plate appearances, probably 1, and then do a few of them play the next day too, or do they come back Sunday and now they're up 3 innings, 2 plate appearances? By the time they leave, are they up to like 4, 5 innings, 3 plate appearances? Because, they leave on the 1st, by the 6th, I think is when games start, and they're going to be playing 8, 9 innings. And so the Padres want them to be ready. Look, everybody was in camp early. Guys are getting prepared for this. They're obviously not going to rush anybody if someone hears this and goes, oh no, because yes, it would be different because like you said, like we just don't I barely count the Friday and Saturday Cactus League games because you just don't, not that they count, but I barely even I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I guess it really hasn't started because the regulars just don't play those first couple, but they will this time.
How many for the 3 new pitchers in Canning, Marquez, and Buehler? How many roster spots do you think is realistically available for those 3? How many will be kept?
Well, I mean, Canning's going to start the season. Wouldn't be surprised if it's on the 60-day IL if they determine that he's not going to be back till the end of May. But regardless, he's not going to be on the roster. And I think I think there's 1 spot for probably Buehler or Marquez, but hey, could be Sears, could be McKenzie, could be Waldron, but I think it's Marquez or Buehler. I think it's Buehler. We'll see what it looks like. I think there's some promising things that you saw last year and that people are saying about him. But now if they go with 6 starters at the start, then there's 2. Now what you got to think about there is, so you're at the beginning of the season, guys aren't going very long, and now you're only going to have 7 relievers. Now, is one of those relievers, JP Sears, Kyle Hart, guys that can go 3 innings or whatever? They can figure this all out, but I really think that it's a 5-man rotation and that the 5 guys that are really battling, there's more, like Logan Gillespie's going to be stretched out, Kyle Hart's going to be stretched out, but really there's 5 guys, I think, going for 1 spot.
Kevin Acey is with us right now on San Diego Sports 760. I haven't talked to you since the Preller extension news. I'd ask it like this. Why won't they disclose the length of the agreement?
Preller's choice. Preller was highly uncomfortable with this. And just being the focus of attention. And look, that's not false. He's never been the guy. He's not the guy who perpetuated the rock star thing. He was not comfortable with that. He wants the focus to be on the players. He always talks about our group, meaning his scouts, meaning Josh Stein. So he was uncomfortable. He doesn't want us to know the next time it comes up. When he's like, why don't we hear about this from other GMs? I'm like, because other GMs aren't in their 12th year, man. Most guys are fired before their extension. So that's why it was a big deal to you. Plus, you've created, not him has created purposefully, but he has created this image, or there has been created around him this image and this interest in him. And he just doesn't want it.
I guess my follow-up would be, couldn't he have, and again, we can't speak for him, but he could have avoided it. The fact that this did get all the way into camp, and your reporting was spot on where you were saying last week, hey, this is likely to get done at full squad workouts, maybe by Monday, and it did. But this was all avoidable. If he didn't want to be the center of attention, he could have signed this thing 9 days ago, right? And there would have been so much less.
John Seidler could have gotten together with him and gotten it done. I mean, Preller had, there's financial. I'm not saying, I don't think that was hugely important. I don't know that Preller he certainly had the button thing besides sweatpants. So he doesn't spend a lot of money, right? Doesn't have kids to drain him like you and I. I don't think that was a huge deal, but he wanted some of his guys taken care of. He wanted some assurances about some things. And so those things, yes, John, you are correct. He could have, but that's pretty easy. I could say you could have agreed to your 8-year extension with iHeart, sooner than you did. But I don't know all the details of that. And so I don't know. While AJ did take it on himself to say, hey, look, I did, and I think he meant it. I know he meant it. That, look, I don't focus on multiple things during the off season. There, I'm focused on trying to get the Padres better. Jon Seidler also said he likes to do these things in person, and Jon Seidler's been a little sidetracked with something pretty big.
He has, no doubt. And I was going to ask you about that. Just Jon Seidler, correct me if I'm wrong, basically his first time, if not his actual first time in a scrum situation. I know Eric Ripner was with him. I guess twofold, were you surprised he was willing to do that? And secondly, was there anything notable that he said as a takeaway from that media scrum?
I know that the idea that he said they're not moving, that people took that as notable, and I understand why, but it was ludicrous to think that the new owner would move the Padres. So that really, but it was news because he said it and all that, and it has been thrown out there. So I guess that was the biggest thing. I was surprised he did it because this is a man who's doing this job out of duty. Not that he doesn't love the Padres, but not everybody wants to be the boss. And he's doing this out of duty to his family and his late brother. He doesn't like these. You can tell he's uncomfortable when he does them. He generally declines to talk. And so in that sense, I was surprised, but I wasn't, because he knew that that's what he needed to do. And it would have been worse if he had not talked.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Kevin, we appreciate you taking time for us. Games on Friday, hard to believe, but spring training is here. I don't know if it's a must win or not, but it's a critical weekend, obviously, in Peoria. Appreciate you doing it, and we'll connect again coming up in a handful of days, all right?
Right on. Take care.
All right, more reaction to Kevin Acee. Plus, if you missed Darn A Trip, you'll hear a conversation coming up at 5:30. We're here until 6 p.m. This is San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760. We remind you, STFC, they're going to open up their season Saturday night at Snapdragon, taking on Montreal. And we do want to send you to the game. Be listening all day through Thursday for your chance to win a pair of tickets to the game, plus a team jersey. Just listen for the STFC sounder. We'll play it once per hour. When you hear it, you call her 7. You'll qualify for tickets and the jersey. We'll announce the winner this Friday, and you can hear STFC all season long right here on San Diego Sports 760. I don't even know the whole story with the MLB Players Union, the Tony Clark story. I'm not going to get into it, but they've elected their next director already. It was his number 2, Bruce Meyer. The reason it's of interest is they're heading towards a lockout potentially. So they're going to need, I mean, they're going to have another CBA at the end of 2026. So they're going to need someone representing them with the Players Union. But Tony Clark is out. Bruce Meyer has been elected the next executive director of Major League Baseball's Players Association.
So I joked yesterday, Tony Clark just probably might have dodged a proverbial bullet with this one, because now he's not going to have to go through all the fun of having to try to prevent a lockout and all those other things. And if it doesn't happen, guess who's going to get the blame? It would have been him, because he's the head of the PA. So
yeah, I mean, they're interesting jobs. I would agree. And his resignation is also interesting considering the circumstances. But yeah, they're hard jobs. I mean, I'm expecting. Here's what I'm expecting this offseason: crazy rhetoric, right? Crazy hard lines drawn. But I'm not yet willing to say I'm expecting an actual stoppage that prevents us from seeing baseball, because this is par for the course. There's like certain things that play out, especially with baseball. It's like, we'll never agree to this, we'll never agree to that, and then you get them in a room and goalposts move, and if we don't have this deal done by this date, we're going to miss major league games. The commissioner's office is going to say, and that's going to cost players money. So there'll be a lot of wrangling, a lot of back and forth. I'm certain of it. I think it's a classic example of, what's the Dr. Seuss book I always reference? The Lorax?
Yes.
The Lorax, where it's like you have two sides that are so dug in that they're unwilling to compromise. Now, that happens, that can happen in life with, at work or in a relationship or between nations, or I guess between a union and a league like Major League Baseball. So I'm not expecting them to see eye to eye, but you always have to take a step back and be like, is this okay for the sport, what we're about to go through? Now, listen, they didn't play a World Series one year. I mean, that's insane because of a labor dispute. Now, since then, knock on wood, they haven't had a stoppage. They really haven't. I mean, they've been basically labor peace free for 30 or more years. That's a long time. And is this now the time that everything's going to change and the sport's going to be turned off its axis and we're going to miss a half a year of baseball or something? I hope not. I really hope not. I feel like there was the goodwill with, hey, we've got the pitch clock, which has sped up games. We've got now automatic balls and strikes. We've expanded the postseason. They have created more TV packages. I don't even know. You know what I mean? I feel like there's been some goodwill. Now, some people are mad as well about the Dodgers spending, hence the CBA that's coming up. But you wouldn't want to ruin what you've done and then get back to a place where you don't want to be.
The thing that scares me about it is the last time, like you brought up, there wasn't a World Series. Was it 93?
No, it was 94.
Okay. The only thing that saved baseball and brought baseball back after that was the Sosa McGuire home run chase.
Yep.
If that never happened, who knows what kind of shape baseball would be in today, because fans were so pissed off at the game and just everybody involved in it for just pretty much going on strike and not having a World Series.
You're right.
That, it literally took two of the greatest, hitting seasons to happen simultaneously in order to get people back in and interested. And then
with baseball looking the other way.
Yeah.
Considering what was playing out, obviously, in the sport. I completely agree. And by the way, there is no more of that anymore. I think Americans aren't going to, I don't think a home run chase in today's sports climate or world resonates like it did 30 years ago.
No, because they hit so many more home runs that it was
ridiculous.
If just the fact that two guys were hitting 50 and they might break Maris's record was just amazing. Now it's
like, I don't even consider the record.
You would have to have like Ohtani and Judge like beat 60,
70,
60, 70 home runs to where they're going back and forth like that. But even that, Sosa and McGuire played in the same division, so they would play each other all the time, and they were division rivals.
Ridiculous,
And even if it is Ohtani and Judge that are going up, they don't play each other enough that it's going to be like, oh yeah, here we go. We get to tune in this Saturday afternoon on Fox because you get to see Ohtani and Judge duel each other with home runs. It's not like that anymore.
And here's the other thing. Tell me if I'm wrong, Brent. Americans held in such high regard 61 from Roger Maris. It happened in 1961 when baseball still was. That's before the first ever Super Bowl. Is that right? Yes. That's 65 years ago. So this is when baseball is still holding on as America's pastime, right? Like baseball is an American, it's a staple of American society in 1961. And now you're 35 years later, and there's this home run chase or whatever it is, 37 years later, and this home run chase, and people, baseball's holding on, but obviously it's not the NFL by the 1990s. But what we've seen over the last 25 years with Bonds and McGuire and Sosa, how many Americans, Brent, know that Barry Bonds at 73 compared to Roger Maris's 61 and 61? Yes, people know. But it's not held in near the same regard, because it was done under the suspicion of Balco and steroids. And so I don't consider it the same. I'm not taking away what it is. It's 73 home runs in a year. That's a factual statement. That's ridiculous. But it's like not even attainable. It feels like in today's baseball. And B, I don't hold 73 from Bonds in the same regard as Roger Maris's 61 and 61. So I don't think that number, when you say 73 to a sports fan, do they scream out Barry Bonds? Maybe to a baseball fan, but I don't think it resonates with everyone.
I think a big factor of why it doesn't, though, is because baseball just kind of likes to pretend like it didn't happen. Because anything that has to do with steroids now, that's just their dirty little secret that we don't talk about that anymore. That's all in the past, to where Maris had movies made about him and the 61 chasing that HBO movie, and he is in the Hall of Fame, and so his 61 just got more publicity and press than, or at least post action, than what Bonds's did. Because like you said, once Bonds hit it, they're just like, okay, you're the champ. Shh, now we're just gonna kind of forget about it because everyone's gonna just bring up your overly large head and he was allegedly he was clear and all that other stuff. And so it's one of those where they'll acknowledge it briefly, but they don't want to get too far into it because they want people to forget about it. Just like I think they should just open up just pretty much a steroid wing into the hall. Just everybody from that era that it doesn't get in, put them in, but just put them in a specific wing so that it's known that, they came from this era when, to save the game, we essentially looked away from performance enhancing drugs to try and, save the sport. And, these guys are part of that era. So, at least give them their due for what it was.
The historical significance of it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just, I don't know. Like Babe Ruth had hit 60. That stood for 34 years. Roger Maris hit 61. That stands for a long time. The issue is the issue is not it getting broken. Roger Maris is not regarded as a player near the caliber of Babe Ruth. He had like 2 great years, but it was still an unbelievable accomplishment. Barry Bonds is regarded as one of the great players in the history of the sport. The issue is the manner in which it occurred. And we've had other players obviously blow past 61 over the last 30 years. Although, again, a number of them are also tied to that era that we're referencing right now. Anyway, there's going to be a lockout, but I don't know if that means they're going to miss games in 2027. That's my point. They may. They absolutely may. I hope not. I really hope not, because, again, you don't want to take the steps back. That's what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. You don't want to take a step back. You've made some progress. Don't get back to a square one situation.
best case scenario, just got to hope it's like it was the last time to
Get
where
solved late.
Yeah, we start late and then we might have to cut
Some
30, 40
doubleheaders.
games off of the season or something like that.
Yeah, last time they got the 162 in like 5 or 6 years ago, but there were
Barely.
doubleheaders. Exactly. And we'll see if they do it or not in 2027. We'll get back to Padres storylines today from Peoria on the other side. Plus at 5:30, if you missed Darnay's trip, you'll hear a conversation with Darnay from NBC7. We are here until 6 p.m. This is San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's new Biggie Deals. The Chiefs restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract this week, creating much needed salary cap space ahead of the 2026 season. The new deal takes a little over $54 million of Mahomes' 2026 salary and converts it into a signing bonus. Under the terms of the restructured deal, Mahomes will now count for an additional $11 million against KC's cap for each of the next 4 seasons. Last night, the Aztecs fell at home to Grand Canyon. Their next game is Saturday afternoon when they go on the road to take on Colorado State. Our pregame coverage will begin at 2:00, and John will have the tip after 3. Choose one of Wendy's new biggie deals at $4, $6, and $8. The new biggie deals are bigger and bigger than ever. For a pretty biggie deal, got to be Wendy's. U.S. price and participation may vary.
All right, final hour here on San Diego Sports 760. And we do remind you, San Diego State back on the road Saturday afternoon. They're taking on Colorado State. Pre-game coverage at 2 p.m. I'll have the tip for you just after 3 p.m. San Diego State, Colorado State. Did I tell you, Brent, and you'll hear from Darnay Tripp this hour, we'll get back to some storylines coming out of Peoria as well. Kevin just wrote like 100,000 words on Luis Campusano, which is kind of cool. We'll see if Campusano can break through this year for the Padres. So I have been meaning this. You ever have like a thought in your head, but you never act on it?
Yeah.
Like you're like, I'm meaning to do something and you just put it off because your brain's almost like, you don't want to do it, but you know, there's a million examples. Like
I need to do that.
I need to go to Goodwill and you never go.
That was my example.
I just went today.
I cleaned out my closet this weekend of shirts that like I don't wear and don't fit because I didn't have room, and they've been sitting in the corner of my room in a garbage bag for the rest of the week.
I'm like that a lot.
I actually take it in.
I went this morning, but I had put it off for I could put it off for weeks or whatever. But the other thing that I had been thinking about recently, I mean, and when I say recently, maybe for years, is in our house, I mean, in every house, there's smoke alarms, right?
I'll change the battery.
And I had this feeling in my head. I'm like, I don't know if the smoke alarm on the ground floor by my son's bedroom works. But for whatever reason, every time I wanted to test it, like Kristen would be on a like Zoom call or Jones would be it would be like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, well, I'm not going to test it. He's sleeping. Or it would be 10 a.m. Well, I'm not going to test it. She's on a call. And like, so I just never did it. So finally they've been away. Monday, let's say Wednesday, Monday, I finally do it. I'm like, so I go up to this smoke alarm. I put my finger on the test button. The thing falls off the ceiling. Even when I hit the test button, A, nothing happens. B, the actual circle smoke alarm falls to the ground or into my hands, whatever it was. And I'm like, well, this isn't great. So then I open up the side and I'm like, is there a battery? There was a battery. But the thing like wasn't connected to like the ceiling. You know what I mean? Because there's like wiring that goes. So anyway, it's a long way of me saying that I called an electrician because I don't know what I'm doing, right? I could have maybe gone to ChatGPT. And the guy's like, yeah, like you don't have like working smoke alarms. So the good news is I'm still here to tell the story. And I got it all fixed, but I feel kind of like I should have probably done that sooner, right? It's like the things we concern ourselves with in life. It's like I concern myself with like, oh, I got to get home to watch like the Boise State Utah State game. Meanwhile, my smoke alarm doesn't work in the house. But it's like an all's well that ends well situation. Like how often do you? I just like those assumptions in life. Like smoke alarm probably works. It's a smoke alarm. It's like it's his job. He's like, well, they really don't work for more than like 10 years.
I don't check mine. I looked at I looked as long as the little light flashes and blinks.
Then you're good.
Then we're good. And it's not making a stupid beeping noise. You know, like there's that internet meme going around about people not changing the battery on the thing because they don't know what the beep is. Because they'll be like recording like IG videos and stuff, and you hear like the beep in the background, and everyone's like, change the battery in your smoke alarm.
Anyway, all's well that ends well. I've got smoke detectors that now work in my home. All right, we started today. Well, we talked about the Aztecs and their loss, obviously, last night to Grand Canyon. We'll touch on that throughout the course of this hour as well. We didn't really spend a lot of time yesterday. I thought me and Annie, we hit on everything, including Walker Buehler. And today I've begun to wrap my arms more around this move and what it could represent and signify for the Padres. And I don't really know. I think on its face, it's fine. I think some people think that on its face is more than fine because it's Walker Buehler. But again, Walker Buehler's had multiple Tommy John surgeries. And I think ultimately he's competing with a number of other players, including German Marquez, ultimately maybe Griffin Canning, although he's got to get healthy from an Achilles. And there's others. Kevin touched on that earlier today. There's others, JP Sears, Matt Waldron, Tristan McKenzie, that are competing for that number 5 spot. So, and then you'll hear from Darnay at 5:30. I still need this question answered, which is the quantity of player going to overcome the potential lack of quality of any one player? I hate to put it that bluntly, but that's how it feels to me. Like, you can't, in baseball, you can't add up JP Sears plus Matt Waldron plus Walker Buehler equals, because they don't all play. In basketball, you might be like, well, Farrell Compton plays 18 minutes and Miles Heide played 22 minutes in that game, and they both had 8 points and 6 rebounds. So you got 16 points and 12 rebounds out of the position. That doesn't really happen in baseball. Starting pitchers, it's not like you start 9 of them. It's like someone starts and someone spends their season potentially in AAA. So I agree they have some depth that they lacked a week ago, but is that alone enough to say that it's going to be quality depth?
But wasn't that essentially Moneyball, to where we don't need to sign this guy? We just need to replace him in the aggregate of take his numbers. If we can take 3 players to total what he had, then we'll replicate it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Yes, but yes, in my opinion, like at
it's
a position,
more for hitters.
That's what I was gonna say. It's more like, if you've got a platoon DH where a left-handed hitter hits right-handed pitching and a right-handed hitter hits left-handed pitching, and you kind of go through your season in that platoon, I think that could be beneficial. Or to your point, maybe you have 3 available first basemen, because one day someone DHs, one day someone plays first, and one day someone sits. But when you have Walker Buehler, Griffin Canning, German Marquez, and others, how many of those will even have the opportunity to help the big league team, I wonder? Now, maybe like you said earlier, maybe it's Marquez for 2 months. He's effective and then ineffective, and then he's on the shelf, and then it's Walker Buehler for 2 months.
What if they platoon the 5th spot in the rotation, to where, one trip through it's Marquez, next trip through it's,
Buehler.
Skinny Jeans, and I'm going to call him that until he wears not skinny jeans.
Yep.
But, I think it's one of those things to, they could just alternate and just kind of do a platoon at the 5th spot. Because, if none of these guys stands out, it's going to be hard to choose who the 5th guy is. If, they all, if they're all sitting there at like C level after spring training, it's, going to be hard to pick one out. It's going to be like that meme of, what's the difference between these 2 things? And they're like, it's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, ultimately, I think out of camp, they'll make a decision. Because here's the other problem with what you're proposing, is that you can't usually keep the extra player on the roster, and you can't continue to promote, you can't yo-yo, so to speak. There's even rules with it, how often someone can be sent down and then sent back up. Obviously, now there's examples when you can do it. I think what's more likely is your initial point, which is like, hey, German Marquez makes 7 starts, and then for whatever reason, he's ineffective or not healthy. And now Walker Buehler's been working in the minor leagues. Now, I don't know if he's going to accept a minor league assignment or not. I don't know enough about the deal. But then Walker Buehler makes 10 starts. And does he, take the bull by the horns? I mean, Walker Buehler last year was up by and large, because he made 20-something appearances with the Red Sox, and then he made 3 more with the Phillies. So he had his appearances and his starts, which I think is encouraging. Plus, he's got another year post-injury, which also is sometimes beneficial. But he's never going to be, I hate to say it. Is he ever going to be Walker Buehler? Maybe there'll be a game. Of course there'll be a game. There's no way if he makes 16 appearances for the Padres, he doesn't have a game in where he goes 6 innings, 1 run. Of course he will. But will he be consistently effective for them is the way more important point. Because like when you play 162 games, this is what always amazes me. You know, Brent, me and Jim would always talk about this. It's like people would be like, when Manny Machado would homer when he was like 2 for his last 20, be like, whoever doubted Manny Machado looks foolish now. They play 162 games. All of the players homer. All of the pitchers strike guys out. Every pitcher has a good relief outing. Every pitcher has a good start. What are you doing though as you're, what are you doing over the course of the marathon? It's not about any one game. Shoot, most sports aren't about any one game. Maybe more so in football, 1-game playoff formats, 16 or 17 regular season games. One game could mean everything in football. Of course, it can in baseball in a postseason or down a stretch. But by and large, it's less about peaks and valleys and more about consistency in baseball. And that's what the Padres, I think, are going to be seeking. I'm worried about their ability to consistently get quality out of their rotation because Michael King was hurt last year, because Joe Musgrove didn't pitch last year, because of what they're dealing with in their number 5 spot in the rotation. That's what worries me the most, that they will lack consistency. Now, some people may say, well, Ruben Niebla. And I agree. I think he's very good. I think he's a very good pitching coach. I think he could be beneficial for both Marquez and Buehler. I think that could be great. But you can't put it all on Ruben Niebla. You can't put the whole staff and the whole rotation and say every reclamation project is Ruben Niebla's. That's not reasonable. And I don't think how professional baseball works.
Well, with this situation too, it's different because it's not like, Walker Buehler's just had the yips for the past 3 seasons to where, he just needs Ruben to get in his head and kind of just work through everything. He's had multiple Tommy John surgeries and he's been hurt.
Yep.
I don't care how big of a, pitching whisperer Ruben Niebla is. He's not Mr. Miyagi. He can't walk in and do the whole
together.
Thing and just heal everybody.
He can't. If he could, then wouldn't Dylan Cease have had a better year last year?
Yeah.
Wouldn't they have figured it out sooner than I don't even know if they ever figured it out. At the end of the day, it's a lot about leading horses to water, and which is beneficial. Ruben Niebla is going to put someone in a position, I think, to be successful by and large. But you still need to capitalize. It's like any coaching in any sport, or it's like anything. You go to AA, right? They can, but you still got to execute on the principles, right? You stop smoking, or people want you to stop smoking. You ultimately have to be the one to do it. And I don't know if those are good analogies or not, but I think there's something to be said for like, you can have the right system around you. You still need to capitalize on it. And the Padres have, by and large, their pitching staff's been very good under Ruben Niebla. It's been very good. Their bullpen has been outstanding. So there's some real strengths in there, and Ruben Niebla deserves a lot of the credit. But you also you run the risk of saying, well, you can't just throw any randoms out there and expect it to all go swimmingly just because Ruben Niebla is your pitching coach. So I'm fascinated to see what it looks like because, spring training, yes, it is long, but with the WBC and with the March 26th opener, it's not that long. Like they play March 26th in San Diego. When the WBC ends, someone said that from the final game, March 17th, to spring training breaking, like they break camp, that's March 23rd. And then there's 2 days between the 23rd and the 26th where they go to San Diego and get ready for March 26th. My point is it'll be here soon. And I am fascinated to see specifically who grabs that number 5 spot in the rotation. And maybe there's a number 6 spot, as Kevin touched on earlier. We'll get back to the Aztecs trying to bounce back after that disappointing loss yesterday, the GCU at home at Viejas Arena. They've got Colorado State coming up still with everything in front of them, whether it's from an at-large perspective, again, with less margin, or from a Mountain West championship perspective, where they still control their destiny for a co-title in the Mountain West. So we'll react to last night and look ahead, plus Darnay Trip at 5:30. This is San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760. John Schaefer, Brent Sperry. Again, JD Wicker will join us tomorrow on the show at 3 p.m. I'm looking at our text line right now, 70470, started with team. We spent some of today talking about the Aztecs. Their loss last night at home to GCU. Grand Canyon sweeping San Diego State. Incredibly, Grand Canyon is 6-1 all time against San Diego State. Like, how? But they've just had the Aztecs number, and that includes this year. I touched on this a little bit last night. Like, GCU wasn't even in the Mountain West until this past summer. They initially were granted admission into the league for 2026-27 next year. But with all the moving and the shaking, they granted them early admission. And the crazy part about that is Grand Canyon, I don't know if this is going to be true or not. And we'll never really know. It's like the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop. But if Grand Canyon wasn't in the Mountain West, how much different would San Diego State's resume look? They just didn't play them. Now they would have played someone else, and we can't guarantee they would have won those games. So that's the part that you start using wonky math. And I was in favor of, from a men's basketball metric perspective, I was fine with it because I'm like, GCU is going to be good, and they are good. So I felt like with a win or two over GCU, it would only enhance your profile. So I wasn't vehemently opposed to it from that perspective, but it is kind of crazy that Grand Canyon wasn't even in the Mountain West. And then they just kind of showed up, and they've had San Diego State's number and potentially are one of the reasons why San Diego State might be on the outside looking in, depending on how it plays out from here on out.
It might make a difference for most programs because most programs would, take out Grand Canyon and replace them with, Sister Helena's School for the Poor so they can go in there and rough them up by 70 points. And we all know Dutcher doesn't do that.
Right. So if you're saying
so if they were to replace him, they would have replaced him or them with, Florida or some, top 25 program. They're not going to just replace Grand Canyon with two scrub teams just so they can win. He doesn't do that non-conference. He's never done that the whole time I've been here.
The one thing here's where I'll disagree. There's a texter on the text line, and I appreciate you texting in. Your opinion is completely fair. You didn't go too far or anything, but this is what he writes, and I'll react to it. He says, the worst part of SDSU basketball right now is we have absolutely no shot to get past the first round, even if we make March Madness. And that's where I would disagree. Hey, they got to get there. Like, I agree they still have work to do to get there. But if you're willing to throw it out, if you told me right now San Diego State is in a game in Dayton or in like a 10-7 game and they're the 10 and there's a 7 and they're a 4-point underdog, it's March Madness. You're telling me in any one basketball game, you're telling me if San Diego State is there, you have no faith that they could win a game? I completely disagree with that. I think right now it's more about a product of getting there. Once they're there, no one's going to be like, oh, great year. They have no shot. I don't think that'll be the sentiment at all. If it's a Dayton game, you're likely, you're talking about a 50-50 coin flip game. And if it's a game in the field of 64, I mean, what are you going to be, a 4-point underdog? It's not like you're going to be a 20-point underdog.
The thing that I don't like about like the scenario of, saying here February 18th that, they won't win a first round game anyways. We don't know who they would even play.
Right. Their health.
And that factors in so much to where, you can't just play it just by seeding and go, oh, well, they're the higher seed, so they're just automatically going to lose. That's not the way March Madness works. But you can't sit there and say that they're not going to win, make it out of the first round. You have no idea where they're going to play.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that can happen. There are coaching changes. There are injuries. There's players that return from injury. There's teams that get hot and there's teams that don't. I mean, last night to me, Bryce Drew, the head coach of GCU, said this post game. He said it was a little bit of a game of like hard shot making. Like GCU made some tough shots. San Diego State's defense is excellent. GCU banked in 2 threes. They banked in 2 threes in a game that's played like in the 60s. That's a big factor, obviously, last night. San Diego State shot 35%. That's well below their season average. And that GCU deserves some of that credit. Plus, in a sport like basketball, there are nights, unfortunately, the ball doesn't go in at the same clip as other nights. Like, it's not like every time you're on the floor, 48% of your shots go in. You have to find ways on nights when only 38% of your shots go in to be in the game. And that's who San Diego State is. They're in games because of their defense. And even last night, They had the ball down 5 3 times and didn't score. And by the way, not with 30 seconds left. 5 minutes left, they had it twice. And then coming out of the under 4 media timeout, out of the timeout with the ball down 5, and they turned it over. So, and that's, again, in a sport like basketball, of course that's going to happen, specifically in a sport like college basketball. It goes back to my general point. Like, you're asking a team like San Diego State, and the expectations are reasonable. They've had so much success. They're always in the tournament, and they win in the tournament. And you're asking them, though, to win every single time they take the floor. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed. And that's a high bar. It's a very high bar. They were expected to win when they went to Utah State. People were disappointed. They were expected to win in Phoenix against GCU. Got a bad call. People were disappointed. And then there's last night when they didn't play well in the second half, and people are disappointed. And they are disappointed too. We heard from Dutch. We talked to Miles Bird. They are disappointed too. The good news is this: season's not over, to Brent's point, and things can change in a month. Doesn't mean they're going to all go perfectly for San Diego State, but we'll see beginning Saturday at Colorado State. We're going to hear from Darnay Tripp, his thoughts on the Padres' first week of spring training and his thoughts on where San Diego State currently sits. Darnay Tripp from NBC7 joins us next on San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by Fiesta de Reyes in Old Town San Diego. The Chiefs restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract this week, creating much needed salary cap space ahead of the 2026 season. They took a little over $54 million of Mahomes' salary for this year and converted it into signing bonuses. Under the new terms of the restructured deal, Mahomes will now count for an additional $11 million in cap space for Kansas City for the next 4 seasons. And in baseball news, the Major League Baseball Players Association has replaced Tony Clark with Bruce Meyer. Clark, of course, resigned yesterday due to scandal involving an affair with his sister-in-law, amongst other things. The Aztecs fell last night to Grand Canyon at home. Their next game is Saturday afternoon when they take on Colorado State. Our pregame coverage will begin at 2:00, and John will have the tip after 3. Shopping, dining, entertainment. Old Town's Fiesta de Reyes has it all. The perfect place to find unique gifts and handcrafts. Listen to live music every day and dine at one of 2 restaurants, Barbara Saloon or Casa de Reyes, while you're at it. Where the fiesta lasts forever, visit fiestadereyes.com.
All right, San Diego Sports 760. Darnay Tripp, friend of the show, with us earlier to talk all things Padres and Aztecs, but we started it by talking about his new show on Sunday nights on NBC7 Sports Night.
Yeah, we're excited about it. For a long time, NBC has had Sunday Night Football through obviously the fall. And NBC has really gone in on live sports on Sunday nights. NBA has started, as you know, had the NBA All-Star Game on Sunday. And Major League Baseball is coming, I believe, in May. I believe the NBA coverage goes through March and April, and then they will transition to Major League Baseball. And so we've been doing Football Night in San Diego for a long time, coming out of Sunday Night Football, and thought, hey, why not expand it, go year round, and open it up a little bit more, a little bit less kind of sports specific. Obviously, once baseball rolls around, the Padres are here. So I'm sure we will spend a lot of those shows discussing the Padres. But in the meantime, like you said, we had Brian Dutcher on after the All-Star game, which was a very eventful All-Star game for the Aztecs, and another San Diego connection, the guy that Dutch is familiar with, the Norman Powell. We had Derek Togerson out at Peoria, and we've got SDFC coming this weekend. So we'll be touching on whatever we're coming out of. Again, NBA now, eventually Major League Baseball, and then just kind of expanding to the San Diego sports scene and kind of the big storylines and headlines that you talk about on a daily basis and that are on the minds of sports fans around San Diego. And excited to get you involved and others around San Diego from the teams and obviously the voices that people know about and trust here in town. And so we're excited about it. Again, it was a fun first episode on Sunday with Dutch, and looking forward to what the weeks and months ahead bring.
Yeah, enjoyed the first episode. And again, for our listeners, you can catch it Sports Night in San Diego on NBC7. So it's been obviously such a newsworthy week for the Padres, whether it was AJ Preller's contract being finalized finally, the pending sale with John Seidler speaking, then all these signings, whether it's Nick Castellanos or guys like Walker Buehler. Where do you start with the last week? What's most impactful that's come out of Peoria over the last 6 or 7 days?
Yeah, I think, there was that important piece of business with AJ Preller that just dragged on for whatever reason. And I think getting that out of the way and no longer having to ask Key and Eric Grupner and John Seidler about it, not that we have too many opportunities to talk to John Seidler, but obviously that is an ongoing issue. What's strange about that is what impact does the owner have on that? And so, it's going to become a question again with he and Eric Grupner and others when the new owner comes around. But I think in the short term, that was important and well-deserved for AJ Preller. But I think for me, it's just, the rounding out of the roster and bringing in some guys that have some pedigree in Major League Baseball. And look, I know you give me a hard time for maybe going too far in the way back machine to talk about what a player has done. But, a guy like Walker Buehler, he's only 31, he's younger than Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta. Nick Castellanos, you're not looking at, him being in the stage of his career of like Nelson Cruz and Yuli Gurriel and Matt Carpenter. Like, these are guys that have had some tough stretches but are still at a stage in their career where you feel like in the right environment with maybe the right tweaks, they could be effective. And the mix we were looking at in left field and DH last year was a mess. And thank goodness for Gavin Sheets. But I think you look at the roster as a whole, there's a number of experienced major league pitchers vying for that last spot. And it sounds like Randy Vasquez has done a great job, and he looks good to kind of solidify that fourth spot. And there's a really interesting mix of guys, in kind of that first base DH, competition. So I think for me, it's just the competition we see there. And I just feel like the floor for this roster for this season is higher at this stage than it was last year when there were real question marks. I think the guys they have now, I have greater optimism that they can provide real answers at those spots, first base, DH, and in the rotation.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I agree with you on the depth. My one, I guess, critique, and it took me 2 hours to get to this because I had Annie in studio. Sorry. Yesterday, and it took me 2 hours to formulate the opinion.
Sweet invite.
What'd you say?
Sweet invite. Thanks,
dude. You're always invited. I actually thought about today saying you could come in studio, but
that's what people say when you're not actually invited. They say you're always invited. Well, how come you never actually invite me? But alas, continue.
Well, anyway, I after 2 hours of talking about all these moves, I kind of came to a conclusion of is it better what they did with all the, Herman Marquez and Griffin Canning and Walker Buehler, or was it better to just go sign like Chris Bassett? Now, both aren't equal because a Chris Bassett would have cost them ultimately $18 million. And what they did is obviously much more affordable than that, maybe a 10th or a fifth of the cost ultimately. But is it a quantity play? What has more value, the quantity play or the quality play? And I guess it's hard to answer that without knowing how this is all going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And I think even with Chris Bassett, there'd be some,
of course,
probably, not as considerable questions and reason for kind of concern, but there's always questions. What I do think, as far as the rotation goes, this hasn't necessarily borne itself out in terms of position players, guys in the lineup, but they've had so much success bringing guys in, whether it's Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo. You go down the list of guys, making the transition with Michael King from bullpen to starter. There's been a lot of success stories. Nick Pivetta last year, guys they've brought in kind of below the radar signings that, maybe it's where they were in their career. Maybe it's Ruben Niebla. Maybe it's pitching in a pretty pitcher-friendly ballpark, but they've had some success. And so I think from that standpoint, you have the track record. It seems like guys are excited to come here. They know of the recent history from that regard. So I think it makes sense to kind of go this path. And I mean, there's just so many guys that have died. Like Tristan McKenzie is only 28 years old. Now, as you would tell me, 2022 is a long time ago, but he's only 28 years old. He had success under Ruben Niebla. Herman Marquez, we're familiar with him. Walker Buehler, obviously. I kind of like the path that they're going. And I just feel like the odds are in their favor for one of these guys being at least serviceable. And the fact of the matter is, what was Dylan Cease's ERA last year? Not that you want to repeat that, sure, but if that's essentially who you're replacing in some regard, that's, a guy that had a 4.5, 5 ERA last year. You're not replacing a guy that just had ace stuff game in and game out. So you're not looking for the rotation. You just need somebody to round things out. And I hope they've got the bodies that somewhere in there they can find that guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. The way you position it there, I think that is a reasonable way to look at it, that someone will emerge and potentially help this team get to the postseason. Then there's Nick Castellanos. And I was a believer in the days leading up and learning that Philadelphia was likely to release him. I said that on a flyer deal, there was a lot to like there, and I would look the other way with some of the stuff that's being reported out of Philadelphia, for example. Would you agree with that it's probably, maybe there's some baggage, but it's worth the risk, considering there isn't that much risk because you're not signing him to some long-term deal. If it doesn't work, he could walk essentially. If it does work, maybe you're getting a guy that even a year ago hit 17 home runs, and even within the last 2 years, I think it's hit 23 home runs.
Yeah, and I think, if you asked me right after reading Matt Gelb's piece in The Athletic, and I think that's when we did our podcast, and I was like, right. I don't know, man. And then the deal gets done, and you hear what he had to say, and you hear what others around the organization, Manny and Salmon and Preller, had to say. And I'm like, okay, it seems like everybody's on board. Everybody's aware of what's going on. I think Castellanos had some good things to say, like learning from the experience, what he needs to do going forward. He seems to have respect for players, and he's now playing for a guy who was a player not that long ago. It doesn't have the managerial chops, but he has the history of being a big leaguer. And so, and I think to your point, you're getting he wasn't a 20 million in terms of performance, a 20 million per year type of guy last year, but a guy that was thought of enough to get that type of contract on, basically a minimum salary as far as what it's going to cost the Padres. I think it makes complete and total sense. And again, just kind of raising the floor of the team, giving them enough options as possible, enough guys that could be impactful. And if there is a breakup and it doesn't work out, it's going to be not nearly, I would think, as messy a breakup as what he experienced in Philly, because they had the history, because they gave him the contract, and because of things that have happened. Like, if it doesn't work out, you can just DFA the guy and move on with your lives. But I think banking on the upside and believing that you have the clubhouse in place and guys that he's familiar with and friendly with to kind of ease things in. And I even thought, there was on Twitter a video of him today, and you heard, I think he hit a ball to the wall or something. He had heard a big roar from the dugout. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. It's like they're getting behind each other. I think stuff like that. It's small, but I think it's an encouraging sign.
Yeah, I would agree. Final one for you, Darnay, would just be on San Diego State. I just want your thoughts. I mean, obviously you spent last weekend talking with Dutch in studio. You watch these games like a lot of our listeners do as well. I mean, it's been unique to some extent. There have been some highs, there have been some lows, including last night, obviously, at Viejas Arena. What do you make of where the Aztecs are and what's still possible down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they certainly have to win out in the regular season to have a chance of getting at large. And, there's the games there with Utah State, New Mexico, and Boise State to be the resume boosters. And then you kind of root for Grand Canyon as well.
Right.
In the meantime. But, it's just been a tough kind of sort of herky-jerky season. There were stretches where they weren't healthy, where they were playing really, really good basketball, and you saw the depth. And then, they get healthy again, and just finding the right rotations and combinations and minutes for these guys has seemed to be a challenge. And, you're hopeful for Magoon Guath after what he did on Saturday, and then he doesn't have a great game. And same thing for Reese Dixon Waters has been awesome during the Mountain West and has a tough shooting night when Miles Bird gets it going. And so it's just been tough to kind of get the right guys going at the right time. The talent is there. You just hope Magoon continues to get healthy and maybe he hits his stride in March, which would be the perfect time. Yeah. Obviously, it'd be great to see LD Harrington back. It's like I'll always believe the pieces are there because you look at the roster and there's so many guys that can do things. It's just putting together from night in and night out. And, we've done it with the Padres where they show us enough signs. We're like, okay, at some point you just have to believe that that's who this team is. And maybe it'd be easier for all of us to be like, okay, they just need to get it together in Vegas. And that's what it's going to come down to. Again, I think they have opportunities to avoid that where maybe they don't necessarily have to win the whole thing. But it's moving in that direction. And, you just hope Dutch can kind of have the magic touch game in and game out with the rotations and with the minutes, the combinations of guys to win because that's been, like I said, a bit of a challenge to this point in the season.
And it is the nitty gritty. There's no doubt. I mean, their margin is as thin as it's going to be, and they do need to win games here down the stretch. Or, like you said, there's always the Mount West tournament in Las Vegas. Darnay, you're always welcome. Anytime in studio.
I'll see you in a month or so.
Appreciate you doing it. Watch Darnay on Sports Night and on NBC7. And yeah, I'm going to be with you when? In March at some point?
I believe 1st. So, yeah. I think
we're, so? Okay.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see.
All right.
You're always invited, John.
There we go. All right. Thanks, Darnay.
Thanks, dude.
All right. Brent's back page coming up next. All right, final time on San Diego Sports 760. Busy day tomorrow. Be with us beginning at 2 p.m. We'll qualify more listeners for SDFC tickets. We'll give away Aztec tickets for Utah State next week. JD Wicker will join us. The Brian Dutcher show is tomorrow night. We have everything tomorrow. So be with us beginning at 2 p.m. We're kind of up against it. So let's get to this.
All right, we'll start with, do you know who Draco Malfoy is?
No. Like, is that a Star Wars character? Is it a real human?
Sort of.
Is it a WWF?
It's a Harry Potter character.
Okay, so no.
Okay, well, you went to Harry Potter Land with Jim that one time.
That was actually really cool.
Okay. Well, Draco Malfoy was the kid bad guy in the Harry Potter movies. He was the little rich jerk that, always got into it with Harry and his friends. But he is in the news because of Chinese Lunar New Year.
Okay.
Because it is the year of the horse this year.
All right.
And Draco Malfoy, the character, was played by actor Tom Felton in the films, and he's surged in popularity due to the Chinese translation of his surname Marfer, which is not the same way they say in the movies, but which means horse and fortune.
Okay.
So they're saying that goes with it being the year of the horse. So I guess in China they're just going nuts with it, to where like you can go into malls and they have huge Chinese New Year banners with like a picture of this kid when he was 12 years old in the Harry Potter movies.
Isn't that bizarre?
Yes, it's bizarre, but it's kind of funny too, because it's just kind of random that they just picked the bad kid from the Harry Potter movies almost 20 years ago now, and now he's become the unofficial face of Chinese New Year, for the year of the horse.
That is interesting. All right, I like it. No, but I've never heard of that character or person.
Okay, you'd probably know him when you see him, because like I said, he was the jerky looking kid. He had lavin hair because he slicked it back.
What else you got?
Popeyes is bringing back its seafood menu. You can tell we're getting close to Lent because everyone's bringing their fish menu out.
Yep.
So Popeyes is bringing back its seafood menu nationwide, which started on Monday. So you can get shrimp, a fish sandwich, and surf and turf combos. And shrimp, the shrimp is getting 4 new dry rub options, because before it was you just got like fried shrimp, which is pretty good. But now you can get garlic parmesan, lemon pepper, buffalo, and ghost pepper. And they're also in the news. It's a big day for Popeyes today. They announced that one of their fan favorite sides is making a return.
Okay.
And fried pickles are coming back to the menu too, because they tried them and put them on the menu last year, and I guess
fried pickles are good.
They sold out like crazy.
Yeah, they're very good.
So if you go to Popeyes, you're going to be able to get your fried pickles and a big fish sandwich. They have big fish sandwiches. It's not like Arby's big, but it's pretty big.
Right.
And then finally, you gave me this story. NBA 2K26 has a DLC coming out, which DLC, if you don't play video games, stands for downloadable content, which is usually just like additional, things and just additional content for you to play after you go through like the main portion of the game. Well, they've announced that they are doing a DLC involving 16 college basketball teams.
Right.
It's a little deceiving because they make you think that they have, because they got Arizona, Baylor, Duke, Florida, UConn, Michigan, UCLA, and you think that you're going to get to play as, Jerry Stackhouse or something like that on Carolina. But not really. They claim that it's to celebrate the next generation of players, featuring Cameron Boozer and Lauren Betts.
Who's at UCLA?
Which is the UCLA women's team, because that's what they don't tell you, is that some of these college teams are celebrating the women's team. Gotcha. So like UCLA and UConn, because they specifically mentioned paying homage to stars like Kevin Durant and Paige Beckers.
Yeah.
So some of those are going to be, because there is a WNBA mode in NBA 2K. Not a lot of people play it, but they do have one. So they've added some of the college content in there. You brought up the good point. Why don't they just make their own standalone college game?
I need a standalone game, dude.
They are.
It's on the way, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of hoping that the same way we got like that very basic bare bones trailer for college football before the national title game, like 2 or 3 years ago now. I'm hoping that sometime during the Final Four,
we get
some sort of bare bones basic like trailer for it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I think might be kind of a little more difficult in terms of basketball with football is football. Everyone's got helmets and pads on. So to a certain extent, they can kind of make people generic, even though they have their real names and somewhat likenesses.
But in basketball, you're going
to have
features of the person. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that might take them a little bit longer.
Yeah,
but
I agree. By the way, if you ever watched relay speed skating, it is fascinating, dude. How they know what they're doing, it is insane. It's on.
I was watching this morning. One of the ladies cut early, and No, she like cut everybody off, and they had to like go to like a
video
photo
review. That's going on right now in this one too. This is insanity. Watching this thing. All right, back tomorrow 2 p.m. If you missed anything today, go to sportssd.com or the iHeartRadio app. For Sammy Long, who was here earlier, and Brent Sperry, I'm John Schaefer. This is San Diego Sports 760.